Steve got dinner Fulcher Ascody Clore Ella on show on Cluiche. Hello everyone, welcome back to another weekend review show here on Cluiche with me, Séamus Brady, your host, and I'm joined as always, it seems, by my good friend Matthew Hurley, the Gaelic Statsman. Welcome back onto the show, Matthew.
Thanks very much, Séamus. You said that you would have expected me to be happier a few weeks ago after, I think, the Cork hurlers beat Waterford, but I am absolutely delighted now, obviously, after the footballers beat Roscommon yesterday. That was incredible, and the hurlers winning last week as well. It's a good time to be a Cork football supporter, especially after yesterday. Good to get the comments off John, and even when I was part of the media asking John, old Cork and Barry Maddy were asking most of the questions, to be fair, all the questions in fact, but they were, when we were with Cleary, like, he was absolutely delighted. You could see in his face just to get over the line, and it was just brilliant day over the Portlaoise now yesterday. And yeah, some brilliant results over the weekend as well, and looking forward to the draw tomorrow morning. First the podcast here, but the draw tomorrow morning, it should be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I might be listening to it because I will be working tomorrow morning, but I still am on the side of that they should change it and put it in with the Sunday game so that you'd have a great bit of content there, but they're already pretty tight for time, so maybe that is the reason why. Before we jump in, Matthew, I want to make this point. Just what a weekend of Gaelic football. And I think the FRC really have saved the game. When you look at what we had last year, players doing keepy-uppies in the middle of the pitch, one score from play for a team in a club final. We had a lot of bad games last year. This year, there's a cracking game every weekend. And this weekend, we had 6 or 7 genuinely fantastic games of Gaelic football. And the thing I love the most about it is that this game brings out the best in players. This game is encouraging players to take risks, go for shots. We're seeing so many sensational scores now that we weren't seeing the level of last season. And across the board, whether it was Donegal and Mayo was a cracker, Tyrone put on a tour de force against Cavan, Cork and Roscommon was a thriller, Meath, superb victory over Kerry, and the 2 pointers from Rory Kinsella, Connor Duke. Monaghan against Down was an absolute cracker as well, and you had some gorgeous 2 pointers from Jack McCarran, Pat Havern. Dublin against Derry was superb, some unbelievable 2 pointers in that game from Shane McGuigan. Great performances from the likes of Conor O'Callaghan, Lee Gannon. Just across the board, and then not even mentioning Armagh Galway, which was unbelievable as well. Just across the board, we had unbelievable action. The Táilteann Cup, Wicklow with a buzzer beater from Dean Healy, shocking Westmeath, Limerick scoring 4 goals against Wexford. Just across the board, high scores, hugely entertaining games. We have Jim Gavin and the FRC and everybody at the primary level of the GA to thank for what they've done to save Gaelic football.
Exactly, and there is some complaints and things like that. And there was complaints at the time saying that the FRC are not here to save the game. I remember one guy on X, this guy's grinding my gears now, Cormac O'Malley on X, and he was basically lambasted the FRC, saying that they're here to make the game complicated, unnecessarily complicated, bad for referees and things like that. And I'm just like, just shut up. Just shut up. Gaelic football is improving, whether you like it or not. Jim Gavin and his team have done an absolutely brilliant job in not just making the game more exciting, but making teams believe in themselves a bit as well yesterday. When you look at the results, even Meath beating Kerry, who would have said Meath would beat Dublin and Kerry in one championship year before this year? I certainly wouldn't have. I was rating Meath, but I wouldn't have certainly said that. And it's a miraculous achievement that they have done that. You look at Down, the way they competed against Monaghan today, I was really, really impressed with them. Down were Division 2. They're probably unlucky to go down, but pardon the pun, obviously. But I see them in Park Esler against Cork, and I was like, okay, pretty even keel with Cork. How could Down improve and things like that? That was the first game I watched them since the start of February, and I was actually very, very impressed with Down. Very, very good performance there in that game. Even Mayo, I know Mayo went out of the championship, but they showed a lot of glimpses. Just again, and we'll get onto it, I'm sure, the 2 pointers. Mayo just haven't kicked 2 pointers all season long, and it came back to bite them today. You look at other games, even Derry. Derry competed very well against Dublin last night. Armagh and Galway, absolutely thrilling game of football. Like, there was thrilling games across the board. And you look at the Wicklow story, obviously, finishing top for group that included Offaly, beating Laois, then to beat Westmeath again. Like, it was a brilliant achievement by Oisin McConville's Ben as well. Limerick are excelling under these new rules as well. Kildare and Offaly, what a superb game that was in Newbridge. Like, the amount of games that were so good was absolutely brilliant. I think Ed McGinley mentioned, I think he was jokingly really on commentary about, I say the defences won't be happy about this, but genuinely, I see BBC say this after the Armagh and Antrim game. Is there too many scores? I'm just like, look, attacking football, that is where it is at the moment. And Tomas O'Shea was actually bang on the money on the Sunday game earlier. He said that the football games right now are trumping the hurling games. And you would not have said that a few seasons ago. So Jim Gavin, Eamon Fitzmaurice, Peter Kahneman, who's joined in recent weeks as well, Colin Collins, all the people that have been involved in this FRC committee, thank you. Thank you for making it a great game of Gaelic football. Thank you for making teams believe in themselves again. And now we have an All-Ireland quarter-final, as Joanne said earlier on the Sunday game, with no provincial winners. That is absolutely remarkable.
Great.
And it shows that every team could compete. It's just a brilliant championship, competitive-wise and entertainment-wise. It's superb. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. Sean O'Malley here says you lads could literally do a top 10 on the games that have gone through the round robin. I mean, you could literally do that this season. I mean, Jim Gavin and the FRC and everybody involved in setting up that committee and everybody involved in changing the rules of the game, in my opinion, have saved Gaelic football, because Gaelic football had got so boring, so negative, so defensive. And now we're just seeing epic after epic after classic after classic. Like, just every weekend we're getting bangers. And Dublin Derry was fantastic. Armagh Galway was fantastic. Kerry and Meath, what a win for Meath. Monaghan Down was an unbelievable game of Gaelic football. Wicklow beating Westmeath at the buzzer beater from Dean Healy. And on top of that, we're pushing our best players to do extraordinary things. We're seeing unbelievable two-pointers from the likes of Darrow Boyle, from the likes of Cormac Costello, from the like Conor Duke, Rory Kinsella. Like, week in, week out. Rian O'Neill's two-pointer against Dublin and Croke Park is one of the nicest points you'll ever see. We're seeing unbelievable games and unbelievable bits of skill and unbelievable scores. And anybody saying, oh, we're seeing many scores, that's a proper, oh, my diamond shoes are too tight, my wallet is too small for my 50s type of complaint. Like, we are getting spoiled right now. The games that we're getting this year is absolutely unbelievable. We just need to cherish it. And yeah, thank you to Jim Gavin. Thank you to the FRC. Thank you to anyone who was involved in setting up these games, from the sandbox games to the people who gave feedback, because now Gaelic football is a truly incredible product. It's a truly incredible, entertaining, hugely enjoyable sport to watch and to play by the looks of things. You ask any player in an interview, do they prefer playing the game now or do they prefer playing the game a year ago? I haven't seen anybody say that they preferred playing the game a year ago, especially not forwards. Forwards love it. And on top of that, it's letting them express themselves. We are allowing our top players, our top forwards, to express themselves and entertain the crowd. And it really is like, are you not entertained? Like, we have been spoilt, not just this weekend, but over the entire year of 2025 since these new rules came in. And what a weekend of Gaelic football it was. Let's dive in then with the games that we got over the weekend. Sean says here, and there's so many more games to go. So Sean and Brian here said, Brian O'Reilly, for me to have beaten Dublin and Kerry is simply amazing. They have scored the most two-pointers. They really have embraced the new rules under Robbie Brennan. Jack Nutty says, Cork and Kerry in the Munster semi-final as well. Yeah, that was an unbelievable game too. Like, we've had so many of them throughout this championship season. But we are going to jump in right now with the game, starting from Group 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we'll start off in Group 1. Donegal 19 points, Mayo 115 at Dr. Hyde Park. It looked like Fergal Boland had rescued a draw for Mayo, but then Kieran Moore went down the other end just 20 seconds later and slotted over the winner for Donegal. The real winners here is Cavan. Cavan owe Kieran Moore a point and basically a night out for that, because Kieran Moore saves Cavan's bacon, keeps them in the championship, and Mayo have a premature exit. At least they went out with their boots on. They fought to the end, but that defeat to Cavan has cost them dearly.
It has, and look, it it was a brilliant game of football, especially in the second half. The first half, they were very, very nervous, I would say. Mayo and Donegal. Donegal, to be fair, were playing against the wind. A really difficult wind to play in fairness in the Hyde, which is always, it's an open ground. It is a difficult place to play, obviously. But Donegal really showed a lot in the second half. They showed a lot of character, especially after David McBride's goal. Like to be honest, once McBride scored, Donegal could have easily said, lads, we have top three here. We could just ease off. This is what I expected to happen. If Mayo had a bit of a pull about them, if they went gunning for home, then you would have said about Donegal, okay, they're in the top three place. They may as well just lax here. But and genuinely, after Fergal bowled his point and so close to the buzzer, I thought, okay, Sean Patton's going to keep the ball out here. They're just going to play out for a draw. But as soon as they caught the ball, I was like, okay, Donegal really want to knock out Mayo here. They really want to do it. And then Kieran Moore gets the ball. And if you're talking about clutch players this year, what a man to do it. Like, he scored a fantastic goal in the Ulster final. And that point at the end to win it for Donegal, obviously it doesn't get them top of the group, which I'm sure they'll be disappointed. It's another game of Ballybofey next weekend for them. But look, it was a brilliant game of football, especially in the second half. And as I said before in the chat about the FRC rules, the Achilles heel for Mayo, and we're like a broken record saying it on podcast for this season, 2-pointers. They cannot get them. They got none today. Donegal got 2 through Darragh Boyd and Michael Murphy. That was the difference. Like, Mayo can say all they want about the new rules are a bit challenging and things like that. It's the same for every team. And Mayo are the one team that just not embraced getting 2-pointers on the board. Like, even there was a situation, I think, in the second half when Mayo probably needed a 2-pointer as well, where Donegal breached. They breached 3 players. And Mayo could have actually taken it outside the arc. But Ryan O'Donoghue chose to take it in close to goal. And you're thinking, like, you need a 2-pointer at this stage just to get the juices flowing. You need a 2-pointer at this stage. And O'Donoghue, he got the point, fair play to him. But like, you need to, at that stage of the game, when your championship fate is on the line there, you need to take risks. You need to go for 2-pointers at that particular moment. They got the goal through David McBride, but just not enough 2-pointers, not enough 2-pointer opportunities. Well, what I will say, despite Mayo being out of the championship, Conal Dawson was very, very impressive in the second half. I thought he grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck in the second half when it was needed. Fergal Boland obviously off the bench and getting a point as well. Darragh McHale, all season long, I think he's been one player for Mayo that has really stood up, to be fair to him. But for Donegal, the funny thing about Donegal's performance is I don't think that was a vintage Donegal performance. I really don't think so. I think there's a lot they can improve on, which is not a good thing for the sides that are away from home at Ballybofey next weekend, whoever they may get with a hat tomorrow morning. That's not a good sign for them because Donegal have another level to go up on. Michael Murphy again dragging his team through the mud there. Padder Morgan, really good the first half in particular. Conor O'Donnell, Shane O'Donnell had a chance for a goal. Well, I would say Colin Breed made a good save from Shane O'Donnell first of all. And then, while it was a bit of a mix-up, I would say, for the Donegal kick-out, where Sean Patton releases the Donegal player, an absolutely brilliant ball over the top. He did very well to get back into the goal for the Paddy McBrearty opportunity as well. So Colin Breed deserves his sword for a decent enough display, in fairness to him. But ultimately for Mayo, it's 2-pointers. They can't get them. They have to improve on that next season.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Sean O'Malley says Mayo's Achilles heel is the 2-pointers. They're so incapable in scoring points, even on the edge of the arc. So many short shots and wides. Well, I'll put it this way. In the first half, Mayo had a deceptively strong wind, and they only even had 3 attempts at a 2-pointer and put all of them away. So, in the first half, the wind was very deceptively strong, and Mayo only took 3 attempts at 2-pointers, and they missed all 3. And we saw in the Connacht final as well against Galway, when they needed a 2-pointer to save themselves, they kind of threw it to Ruan, hoping that he'd be able to score when they had never tried it in an inter-county match really up until that point. And Ruan, who definitely would be capable of kicking them, had he been given the practice and had he been given, the trial and error of inter-county games during the league, but you're throwing it to him and hoping that he gets it right first time. I mean, you can't really be doing that because Darragh O'Boyle is an expert to kicking them, but Darragh O'Boyle has been kicking them since week 1. Darragh O'Boyle's been going for the 2-pointers since the rules came in, probably before that, because Michael Murphy was probably on the blower to Jim McGuinness saying, this is coming in, get Darragh O'Boyle kicking. But in all honesty, Donegal have been embracing them. Meath have been embracing them. We saw today Conor Duke, Rory Kinsella banging over 2-pointers because they've embraced them. Galway have embraced them. Donegal have embraced them. Mayo have not. Mayo have not embraced them, and it's caught them time and time again. And with that win that they're back in the first half, they didn't take advantage of it the way that Donegal did in the second half with their 2-pointers from Darrow Boyle and from Michael Murphy. So the reality is you can't, and I'm aware that you don't want to look at this game and say, okay, now that Mayo lost, are we going to do hindsight analysis on Mayo? The reality is with 20 seconds left, they had equalised and they just needed to kind of see it out. And Donegal could have just kicked the ball out and then we would be looking at this game completely differently. But that 2-pointer Achilles heel has always been there. And we've been talking about it since the start of the year. You talk about any episode that we've done here on Cluiche, if Mayo are in it this year, we're probably talking about the lack of 2-pointers that they have in their team and warning that it will cost them down the line. And their season has finished prematurely. Also, we do have to discuss as well after the game. So a sensational victory for Donegal, and we do need to give big shouts. Sean Patton, I thought, was absolutely fantastic in goal. His kickouts have been absolutely superb all season. Michael Murphy, solid as ever. You're right, it wasn't a vintage performance by Donegal, but we have to talk as well. Jim McGuinness's comments following the game. Now, he really, really cut a very annoyed figure. He was complaining about how Donegal had to play the game in Dr. Hyde Park. And he said, quote, "This is we don't believe we should have been here today. They wouldn't send Mayo to Omagh." And then on top of that, he was saying that they couldn't get a hotel near Dr. Hyde Park, so they actually had to go away from the ground and get a hotel in Athlone. Now, I agree with all of that. I agree that Donegal should not have been put in that position. The game should not have been played in Dr. Hyde Park. That's not really a neutral ground. Mayo have astonishingly more experience playing in the Hyde than Donegal do. It's as close to a home game that Mayo can get without it being in Mayo. I agree with all that. And I agree that Donegal should not have had to get a hotel in Athlone. That shouldn't have been the case. But the point that I completely disagree with him is the line where he says, this only happened because it's us. And then Colm Keys followed up with him on it, saying, what do you mean by it's us? And he's saying, it only happens because it's Donegal. I completely disagree with that. And that's a common tactic that managers tend to use. I mean, Davy Fitz pioneered it pretty much with it's hard to get the breaks when you're the smaller fish. And that type of playing the victim almost, everyone's against us against the world, that type of narrative. Managers often go for that, in my opinion, to try and, put little ideas into referees' heads that everyone's out to get them and everything like this, and maybe they'll be able to get decisions. So on McGuinness's comments, I completely agree that the game should not have been played in Dr. Hyde. It should have been played somewhere else. And I completely agree that them having to sort a hotel in Athlone is ridiculous. However, in my opinion, he's completely missed the point with saying this only happened because it's us. I mean, maybe if you're in a team, you feel like the victim almost, but he's definitely playing the victim with that line, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think in general, it wasn't the right decision to play at Dr. Hyde Park, but I have seen some certain instances where teams were brought to a so-called neutral venue and it's way, way away from home then it is from the county they are playing against. Like, I think if the example that pops into my head is, remember the LGFA semi-final in 2017? Cork went up to Kingspan Breffni to play against Mayo in an All-Ireland semi-final in a so-called neutral venue, which it wasn't neutral at all, which I still don't know how that was. But the point was, the point I'm trying to make, did you see Aoife Fitzgerald come out and have this victim mentality after Cork lost the game and Mayo went to the All-Ireland final that year? No. I mean, from Jim, look, Donegal are in a good place at the moment. They're probably the second best performing team at this present moment in time. Armagh, maybe either of them could switch, and they are going very, very well at this present moment in time, league and championship. There's no need to bet the call, especially after Donegal won the game. They won the game by a point with the Kieran Moore score at the end. They were probably the much better team on the day than Mayo. The 2-pointers definitely helped, and he did perform particularly well. Yeah. To come out with those comments, I just that would make a lot of fans say, if there wasn't any already, that would say, oh God, I don't really respect Jim McGuinness or Donegal after that. I mean, it was
I
just.
wouldn't go that far, but I think he's just being cute. I think he's trying to gain a little mental edge and try and put a bit of a thought process in the referee's minds or something. Like Mourinho always did. Mourinho always does that. Mourinho always comes out and, makes little quotes before press conferences. Like, I think he had one game, Mourinho, where he said, if we're going to win this game, we have to beat them and the referee. And it's just like tiny little comments like that to try and make it out like you're the underdog, everybody's against you, and maybe referees will be more lenient then because they don't want the backlash from McGuinness in the post-match presser. But the reality is, this is nothing new for Jim McGuinness. Like, if you watched his first managerial stint with Donegal when he took over in 2011, right from the start in 2011, he was absolutely coming out on the warpath against everyone. I mean, the first game that they had against Antrim, do you remember this? And he went after Pat Spillane, I think it was, and the Sunday Game panel for saying that there wasn't a man of the match in that game. And he did that interview where he absolutely went mad. And to be honest, I completely agree with him and respect that he came out and did that. But my point is him coming out with punchy statements in press conferences is nothing new. It's not a glitch. It's completely part of McGuinness as your manager. He will come out and go to war for his team, his players, if they feel like they've been hard done by in situations. And I completely agree. This game should not have been played in Dr. Hyde Park. Absolutely not. And they shouldn't have had to get a hotel in that long. Absolutely not. But to say
true. That is true, Séamus. But at the same time,
it only happened because it's us.
Yeah.
No, I don't agree with that.
At the same time, though, other than Dr. Hyde, where would you have played this game? Because Enniskillen was obviously used up for the Tyrone and Cavan game. Jim was actually saying Clonus was an option, but that's unfair on Mayo, in my opinion.
Clonus would have been more Donegal's territory.
Yeah. So Mullingar's not big enough. Tullamore's way too south.
I would have been looking somewhere like O'Moore Park, O'Connor Park.
Would that be too south, though?
No, I don't think so. And Dr. Hyde definitely is too close.
To Mayo, yeah. I think the only ground
it was 30 minutes away from the Mayo Centre of Excellence, like.
It is, yeah. I think the only ground that would have been more suitable and available, as far as I know, is Kingspan Breffni.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the only ground that I could think of, because Clonus is too close to Donegal. Hyde is too close to Mayo. I think Tullamore, Portlaoise, that's too south. Salt. That would have been worse. Like, number one, it's closer to Mayo. Number two, the weather.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. Sean suggested Markovich Park. Again, I don't think Connacht ones are the way to go here. I think, I do. I would.
To be fair, Park Sean McDermott in Carrick-on-Shannon.
They played Armagh Galway there.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any issue with that. So I do think that should be the way to go. Orphan here, he says the Donegal goalkeeper is pure quality kickouts on a par with Cluxton at times. Yeah, he's absolutely superb. Liam White says same way. It's mad how they brought Kerry to Tullamore. Yeah, you could look at that too. Raymond Gilburn says, did I see Séamus behind the goal and a Comortis Pelin the Gael took the game on TG4? You certainly did. If it was big ginger over 6 foot, then it was me. Yeah, I absolutely love that. Raymond, if you were there, let me know what was your highlight of that weekend. I absolutely loved it. That was my first time there working at it. I was handling the socials for TG4 over the weekend. And I absolutely had a blast. But yeah, wrapping up on McGuinness's comments, I think he's absolutely bang on about the game shouldn't have been played in the Hyde, and they should have had accommodation sorted for them. But he's completely missed the mark when he's saying that it only happened because it's Donegal. I don't agree with that at all. Now, the other game in Group 1's round 3, Tyrone put on a tour de force against Cavan, 31 points to 18, but due to the Mayo result, as we were saying, Cavan remain in the championship. Darren McCurry with 9 points, Dara Canavan with 5 points. Owen McElholm, the under-20 footballer of the year, came off the bench to score a point. Rory Brennan got 3 points. Kieran McGeary got 2 points, both of them from the half-back line. And Conor Myler made his long-awaited return to the Tyrone team. The only downside is an injury to Michael McKernan. Hopefully that isn't too bad, and hopefully he's back before too long. But it's a great day for Tyrone, and even though Cavan got through, they've a lot to work on before the preliminary quarterfinals.
Yeah, they could get a nasty draw, Cavan. When you look at the Shark Tanks that are there, like imagine Cavan going down to Killarney to take Kerry. I can imagine that draw happening now tomorrow morning. That would be kind of a disaster draw for Cavan. That would be 3 heavy defeats in a row, most likely, and that, it wouldn't look good for Cavan after such a promising season. But Paddy Lynch scored 9 points, to be fair to them, and Cormac O'Reilly got 4 points. But other than that, there wasn't really much of a spark in that Cavan team. As for Tyrone, in terms of the Michael McKernan injury, if it's not too serious, Tyrone have a 2-week break now. The All-Ireland quarterfinals in 2 weeks. So you'd be hoping for their point of view that he would be okay for the in 2 weeks' time. But I've been saying this for a long time about Tyrone, and this is unlike me because I was very negative about them last year. I'm very positive about them this year. They're underage talent, and the way they're performing at the moment, and the way they're coached under Rocky O'Rourke, watch out for them. I think they're genuine. A lot of people will talk about Armagh. A lot of people talk about Donegal, rightly so. But I think Tyrone are waiting in the long grass. They look serious, all other contenders. And I did say, I backtracked on that prediction eventually. But I did say on Gaelic Games Fan TV in the Cork preview video, I did say the All-Ireland football champions would be Tyrone. And I would say a lot of people would laugh at me saying that, it would be too soon. Yeah, exactly. But I was mentioning like the underage talents, the forwards that are there, like it looks like a happy camp now. Every player look like they're playing their heart and soul under the back of your roof right now. Darren McCurry scoring 9 points for fun. Darragh Canavan absolutely excellent. Matty Donnelly 4 points for him. That's going to do he's no confidence, no harm whatsoever. Peter Hart, I know he came on for the injured Michael McKernan, but he came on and got a 2-pointer. He seems to be a specialist at the 2-pointers, doesn't he, Peter Hart? Like you look at the Errol Kieran, the way they performed the Cup Championship as well. Tyrone are going along very, very nicely indeed. And they're in an All-Ireland quarterfinal now. They have a week break, which will do the players no harm either. And I think they're genuine All-Ireland contender, not just because of today, but over the last few weeks, they've looked really, really good.
Yeah, they've looked absolutely superb. I don't think there's much we can really dig into this game. Tyrone put on a massive showcasing of their strength and their abilities. Their strength and depth is absolutely terrifying. I mean, we were talking there about Owen McElholm, the under-20 footballer of the year, coming off the bench. He's not even guaranteed a start. This game, they didn't have Rory Canavan in the starting team. Michael McKernan went off injured. They replaced him with Peter Hart. Like the strength and depth that Tyrone have is frightening. And if they really, really get going, they'd be a hard one to stop. Sean O'Malley says Tyrone are dangerous, but they're very inconsistent. They do tend to blow hot and cold, but they have everything at their disposal to be All-Ireland champions. I completely agree with that, Sean, because we've witnessed it in the group stages. Tyrone go away to Donegal and beat them, and then they have Mayo at home, a Mayo side coming off the back of losing their home game to Cavan, and Tyrone were very flat that day. So they do have a bad performance in them. It's just about making sure that they don't have that performance at a key stage of the season. They need to hit form or continue the form that they showcase in this game for the rest of the year, because now there's no safety nets. There's no second chances. If they have another performance like they did against Mayo, they will be out of the competition. Raymond here responding to me says, wasn't at Comórtas Pella this year, watched it on TG Car, attended Kilnamartyr one last year. It's a fantastic competition. It absolutely is, Raymond. Anybody watching who has never been to Comórtas Pella in the Gaeltacht, to look it up for next year, because by God, it is an amazing weekend and there's so much crack to be had at it. And yeah, everybody there speaking Gaeilge. It's Gaeilge. It's absolutely wonderful to see. We're going to move on then to Group 2's round 3. Meath 122, Kerry 16 points. Meath beat Kerry in the championship for the first time since the All-Ireland semi-final of 2001. Unbelievable scenes for Meath. They have beaten Dublin and Kerry in the 1 year now. Robbie Brennan's first year in the job. Matthew, what a year it's been for Meath so far. And I mean, the bounce back from the Leinster final defeat to Louth has been super impressive as well. Rory Kinsella, Conor Duke and Owen Frayne all got 5 points in this game. Some beautiful 2-pointers from Meath. And the goal came from Brian Menton. Going down the home stretch, Meath had the victory secured and their fans were able to just soak it all up and enjoy it. What a day for Meath football. And it seems to me like they've rediscovered what made Meath so special in the Sean Boylan era. They've rediscovered their identity that they had been missing for such a long time. Meath are back.
Yeah, they are, and they're back in a big way. That was a really, really good performance, very assured from a me point of view. And people can talk about Kerry's losses, and they are big losses. Paddy Clifford, Paul Gainey, Sean O'Shea, they're massive. Barry Dan, Jordan O'Connor, they're massive, massive losses. But the key thing, Meath were missing Matthew Costello, arguably their best player of the year, and probably up there for an All-Star nominee right as of now. And they were missing him, Meath, and other players had to step up, and by God, they did. The Connor Duke, as you mentioned there, Rory Kinsella 5 points each. Like Rory Kinsella got two pointers in this one. Brian Menton got all decisive goal in this one as well, a well taken goal past Jane Ryan as well. Jordan Morris got 2 points. Keith Curtis absolutely brilliant in terms of performance. Sean Coffey's a guy who I've been really impressed with at centre back, even against Cork in the last few weeks. Like I was obviously at that game in Navan. I looked at this guy and I thought, this guy's a real leader for such a young guy at centre back. And Meath have a lot of these guys that are primed to be absolute leaders in this Meath team in years to come as well. And Robbie Brennan did mention in the post-match interview as well that it is a young team. He's carrying on the work. To be fair, what Culver Rourke did in the backroom team, and we probably wouldn't have seen that last season after Meath went out in the group stages. But it is a young team. They are building. Robbie did mention that Donald Keoghan and Brian Menton are probably the outliers in that, but I'm sure they'd be happy to mention that. Like, they are the experienced campaigners in this team as well. And I'm sure they're absolutely delighted to be part of this team. And you were saying about Meath in the past few years, the negativity about them probably stems from the consistency in the team selection. Like in forwards, 1 year it's Thomas O'Reilly, another year it's Ben Brennan, then in goalkeeper, 1 year it's Paddy O'Rourke, then it's another guy.
Yeah.
And you look at this Meath team now, it's all set in stone. Billy Hogan in goal, you know he's going to be in nets, and he's been absolutely brilliant throughout the whole year, not just the championship, but in the league as well. Around the middle of the park, you'd probably have Matthew Costello, you have Brian Menton in the midfield, you'd have Sean Coffey at centre back, you have Donald Keoghan in around the defensive line, you have Brian O'Halloran, who's been absolutely brilliant this season. You have these guys that are staples now in the Meath team. You have Connor Duke, you have Rory Kinsella, you have Jordan Morris. You know who's going to play in this Meath team. Like, even there were another guy they were missing, James Conlon. He was missing yesterday as well. Yeah. Like, there was 2 big injuries in Conlon and Matthew Costello, and they still beat a Kerry team. Yes, that had injuries, but they still had David Clifford out there. They still had Shane Ryan. They still had Jason Foley. They still had a lot of talented Gaelic footballers, and obviously Kerry are one of the favourites for the All-Ireland. So it is a brilliant win for Meath football, and it's one of the most traditional counties, and you'd love to see it from a Meath point of view, not just from a Meath point of view, but I think the whole country loves to see this as well, because Meath are a traditional football county, whether you like it or not. They are up there with one of the most historic counties in Gaelic football history. And for them to be performing the way they have at this present moment in time is absolutely superb. But just to stop as well, it's kind of crazy to think this. Since 2011, this is the year after they won the Leinster Championship with the Joe Sheridan incident, obviously, Meath have only reached the quarterfinals twice, 2019 and this year.
That is crazy.
It's unreal, and it's a credit really to what a great job Robbie Brennan has done. Even after the league, when they lost 2 guys at the backward team, a lot of people would have said, including ourselves, would have said, okay, is this the moment where Meath kind of stutter small bit? It looked that way in the low game in the last game of the league.
Yeah.
But they have ploughed on ever since. They beat Dublin. They probably could have beaten Louth on any other day as well. The goals probably killed them, and they didn't mark Samuel Roy. They probably, Jack O'Connor did mention that after the Cork Kerry game. An interesting point about Meath. He said if Meath were to play that game in the Leinster final all over again, Meath would have realised we need to man mark Samuel Roy, we need to stop his supply, and Meath would have won the game. They just, a few things went wrong, and they learned from that experience. But the key thing is, from Robbie Brennan's point of view, they learned from that experience. They've now got 3 games unbeaten. They probably should have beat Roscommon as well in round 2, let's be honest. So they have had a brilliant group stage. They deserve to be in the quarterfinals. I'm delighted Meath football's back up on the tree in terms of contending for All-Ireland Championships, because who's to say Meath can't contend now?
Who's to say? I mean, if you're saying Dublin and Kerry can, I mean, Meath have beaten both of them. But then again, it's what Eamon Fitzmaurice said. It's like, how good are Meath that they've beaten Dublin? How good are Louth then that they've beaten Meath? How good are Monaghan that they've beaten Louth? how good are Donegal that they've beaten Monaghan, how good are how good are Tyrone that they've beaten, like, and there's so many knock-on effects. How good are Mayo, how good are Cavan, like, just every team is capable of beating each other this season, and that's one of the main things I've absolutely loved that Gaelic football has returned with. The main thing that Meath have had is their midfield dominance. The midfield power has just been absolutely off the charts this season. They absolutely took control of midfield against Dublin in the Leinster semi-final. It was one of the big platforms that they had in order to establish such a dominant position at half-time, and ultimately one that Dublin couldn't come back from. Louth matched them more or less in the Leinster final around the middle, and that was one of the big reasons Louth were able to get over the line. But especially in this game, the absence of Diarmuid O'Connor definitely didn't help here for Kerry, but by God, Meath dominated the midfield. And up front, they punished Kerry time and time again with those 2-pointers from Kinsella, from Conor Duke, from Owen Frayne, and the goal from Brian Menton. They were the key scorers. And you are right, it's great to have Meath back, which is a hell of a statement coming from a Dub and a Cork man, because, I mean, Meath had the biggest rivalries of both of our counties when they were in their pomp under Sean Boylan. But it is great to see rivalries come back into the game. It's great to see a traditional county make a resurgence. For Kerry, Jack O'Connor described it as a flat performance that had no energy. The players they were missing, I mean, Paddy Clifford, Sean O'Shea, Diarmuid O'Connor, Brino Bioglic, Paul Gainey, Barry Dan O'Sullivan, Diarmuid O'Connor. Peter Canavan described it, though, as a kick up the arse, really, that they needed. I mean, to use his exact words, Peter Canavan described it as a kick up the rear that Kerry need at this stage. Is that fair to say?
It is fair to say, especially if, and a lot of people have been pointing towards the draw tomorrow morning and saying that Kerry and Galway in Fitzgerald Stadium is a lot appetising. But having said that, 2/3 of the possible opponents are Louth and Cavan. If they get either of them, I feel like Kerry could get back up on the horse in Fitzgerald Stadium next week. That's obviously with the greatest respect to Louth and Cavan, but usually, like, Louth can't even test Kerry in Portlaoise, never mind Killarney. So I think that'll be difficult for them. And Cavan, even the defeat they took today, I know they got saved by Kieran Bourne from Donegal, but that still would be a difficult task to go down to Killarney. But like, injuries, it is a tough kind of spell for Jack O'Connor at this present moment in time. They have to ride the storm at this moment as well. Yeah, it's a difficult time for Kerry, but at the same time, if they get a good draw next week, that's a big if. If they get a good draw next week, then they will be able to push on into an All-Ireland quarter-final. And who's to say Kerry can push on even more now? Because, like, Peter Conlon described it absolutely brilliantly. It is a kick up the backside that it is. Because, like, they won't take any opposition lightly again. You would have thought that even after the Munster semi-final against Cork. So I'm not sure why they took Meath, in fairness, as lightly as they did. I know Meath, you have to give them a lot of credit. It was superb, as we mentioned before, but Kerry were flat by looking at the highlights of this game, and Jack's comments as well. And it is something they need to improve on. Like, even in a few halves, like even in the Roscommon game, they didn't look entirely convincing at times in Fitzgerald Stadium. Then in the Cork game, I know they put on a show in the second half, but in the first half, Cork really bossed them at stages. Did you got a lucky goal through David Clifford to set them on their way? The Munster final was a non-event, and then the Munster semi-final, Cork really should have won that game in down south. So Kerry have not been impressive this season, and I think Jack would be mightily worried by the performances. But the next week now is a chance for the supporters to gain a bit more belief in this Kerry team now. They're in a situation that they've not been in the All-Ireland group stages before. They're in a preliminary quarter-final. They will have to play another week now. But, as Peter Cannon said, it's a kick up the backside they need. And I think this could be a positive for Kerry going down the home stretch.
It absolutely can be. This can be a positive for Kerry. This can be a defeat to kind of rattle them a bit and wake them up to the levels that they need to get to. You have to put the context on it of the 6 players that they were missing. Once you throw Paddy Clifford back in, once you throw Diarmuid O'Connor back in, once you throw Seánie O'Shea back in, they are a different animal. And that is quoting, again, Peter Canavan directly, because he did throw that in after. He said they are still very much All-Ireland contenders, and it's Paddy Clifford that makes them tick. You put him back in with Diarmuid and Seánie O'Shea, and I do think they are a different animal. I would never write Kerry off when they have the players that they have. But this year, any team can beat any team, it seems. And we've seen absolutely astonishing victories for pretty much every county that is left in the championship so far this year. So you really can't underestimate any opponent that you face. And it's clear that Kerry lacked the intensity and weren't ready for this game. And Meath absolutely hunted them in packs and punished them every single time, and were absolutely deserving winners on the day. So Kerry need to wake up. They will take this as a positive, I think, going forward. And if they go out with a championship, well, then this performance will be a sign of what was to come. But if they can pull it back, then this defeat will be a good thing, in my opinion. And Kerry absolutely had the players to win the All-Ireland. You can never, ever write them off. Brian here says, Meath is a very proud and traditional county. It's really good to see them back and competing. Absolutely. And also, I've noticed from my times watching Kerry, nearly all their attacks come down the left flank, and they're always looking for David Clifford. Yeah, no, well, I mean, that's the kind of catch-22 we were talking about. When you have a player as good as him, and you do want to get him the ball as much as you can, but then does that build an over-reliance on him? Now, that wasn't the only game. In Group 2's round 3, we had Cork beating Roscommon in a thriller in O'Moore Park. Cork 19 points, Roscommon 17 points. I'm going to give a big shout out to Daniel O'Mahony. Matthew, you put it up on your page there. That last minute superb piece of defending from Daniel O'Mahony has kept Cork in the championship, which is absolutely extraordinary. We have a comment in here from Gavin O'Reilly, a proud Rossi man. But he says, fair play to Cork, but an absolute embarrassment year for Roscommon not to get to at least the last 12. Young players coming through, not getting a chance. Slow, awful football, a waste of a year for the players. What did you make of this game? And then what do you make of Gavin's comment there, Matthew?
In terms of the game, just I think over the balance of play, I think Cork deserved the win. I'll put it out there. Like, they did absolutely brilliantly, and especially after certain guys' comments that riled the Cork players up, I'd say, in the dressing room. And in fairness,
can you not even say his name?
I'll say it, all right, Mr. Joe Brady. Yeah, you know, it's disgraceful comments. But look, the Cork players shut him right up yesterday. They showed that they care for the county, and they showed they're not just a group of guys that get together for the hobby of it. They're a group of guys that want to compete. Simple as.
And those comments were vicious. I remember reading them being like, it was so personal. Like, to say that they're not a team, they're merely a gathering of lads that just want to tug out for the county or something like that. I was like, come on, man. Like, yeah, they had a bad result against a really, really good Kerry team, but they were leading at halftime, and they're a good football team. Like, and I didn't like the way it felt very personal. And, you know, we've seen him go at Cork before, and I don't know, I just wasn't a fan of it, to be honest. But it's an amazing response by Cork, because Roscommon are a solid team. And for Cork to beat them and hang on in the last few minutes, you know, when the game was in the fire, Cork proved that they had the mettle to go on and win it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And what I will say, particularly in the second half, this was a story of attacking and defensively. Like, I counted the number of shots that Cork had in the second half was 12. We converted 9, 75%. I think that's rare on an occasion for Cork. Like, usually in those latter stages of the games, Cork kind of panic in front of the posts. But in this particular game, there was no way they're going to panic. What I was so impressed about, especially with Colin McCallan got his scores, with Mark Cronin got a superb score as well, they were so calm in front of the post. And Gavin mentioned about Roscommon's slow build-up play. There was one incident, Cork have done that for years, in fairness, but there was one certain incident. Sean Walsh was in his kind of tricky situation in the corner, and Peter Cadman brought this up as well. It was a brilliant clip, by the way. Sean Walsh got the ball in the corner, passed it to Matty Taylor, and they actually did really, really well, knowing the rule that you can pass back to Micheál Martin now with the new rules. Matty Taylor did absolutely brilliantly, just to hoof the ball out of it. A few kicks into Sean McDonald in the forward position, and he took an absolutely superb score. And that was the temperament of Cork all day. What a man, Sean McDonald. What a performance from the young man. Like, he's coming in for his first year in the Cork senior football team. A lot of pressure on his shoulders. A lot of people saying there's not enough footballers in Cork, with Stephen Sherlock off the panel. Like, this guy has proved time and time again this year, even when it wasn't his day at some stages, he definitely has put his heart and soul into Cork football this year, scoring 4 points from play out of 5 particular shots. Absolutely superb. This guy has done absolutely brilliant in obviously the absence of Sherlock and John Hurley and all these players this season. Mark Cronin, superb. The guys around the middle, Ian Maguire, Colin McCallan, Sean Walsh, absolutely superb. Colin McCallan in particular in that second half. Like, he was lording the skies. Each and every ball he was claiming. Ian Maguire, absolutely superb as well. Has been a soldier for Cork down through the years as well. Daniel O'Mahony, like, even before the Daniel O'Mahony block for a sec, the Darragh Craig goal chance that Mian Martin saved. And John Cleary mentioned in his post-match interview as well, this is why he's in goal for Cork. He's an absolutely excellent shot stopper. Absolutely superb. One of the best in the country. And to stop that shot for Darragh Craig when he was 1-on-1, Darragh Craig was in the form of his life yesterday, in fairness. He got 5 points for play. So that was not an easy shot to stand in front of. And he stood in front of it and made a brilliant save. But not only that, Kieran Lennon running in to try and collect the rebound, but Sean Brady gets the slightest of taps out for a 45. Absolutely crucial touch on the ball. And he's been another player that has really been a great find by Cleary. You have to give Cleary a lot of credit. He's brought in Sean Brady, Sean Walsh, Sean McDonald. I know Neil Arden didn't play yesterday, but he played at the start of the league. All 4 of them have been new guys to come in, and they've all been great finds in this Cork team. They've been absolutely superb. And you can't say a bad word about these players. Like, brilliant performances across the pitch for this Cork team. And the block from Daniel O'Mahony from Dermot Murtagh. Obviously, Roscommon, I will get on to the 2-pointer conundrum in the sec for Roscommon, but the Daniel O'Mahony block, he's been doing this for years. He's probably one of the best fullbacks in the country. He's been absolutely superb over the last few years. And for him to get that block, it was fitting. For him to have his moment, to block that shot for Dermot Murtagh, and even for Sean Poulter to kick the ball out. Cleary did mention it, saying that, I was wishing him to kick the ball out, just kick it out, Sean here. But look, he did in the end, and, jubilation at the end. It was just a brilliant day at the office. It was a brilliant performance by this Cork team, and they proved that they are a good football team, that they can put in these performances. And that will give them a lot of confidence going in next week. Because remember last year against Tyrone, a lot of the players said, okay, it's a missed opportunity getting into the quarterfinal. It would have been said, okay, we have to go into a preliminary quarterfinal next week. Oh, no. But now the players are going to a preliminary quarterfinal with a lot of confidence after that win. Momentum can take you a long, long way. And I think it will be a positive for Cork. Well, I think Donegal will be a tough draw. Dublin will obviously be a tough draw. But like it is going to be a tough draw, even down. But we'll see what Cork get in the morning. As for Roscommon, Gavin makes, obviously, with the holding on to the ball too long. I did mention that in previews during the week with Sarah, the things out as well. Roscommon are kind of a team similar to us in standards in terms of keeping the ball for a certain amount of time. And I mentioned this to Jason Keelan in my podcast a few weeks ago before the Meath game. It's like the definition of insanity. You do the things over and over again and expect to get different results. Roscommon have been doing this for years, just carrying the ball for about 2-3 minutes and doing absolutely nothing with it. And the frustrating thing from Roscommon point of view, when they move the ball fast, they were actually very, very good. Like for the Darragh Craig goal chance in particular, they moved the ball into midfield. Conor Carr kicks the ball long. Midfielder claims that plays it into Darragh Craig. That took 10 seconds, less than 10 seconds to get it from front to back. And Darragh Craig, brilliant save by Mian Martin, obviously. But that's what Roscommon can do. If they can hurt teams, if they actually play fast football. I don't know what Davy Burke's decision is going to be. It's going to be very difficult for him to obviously stay on to his job, I'm assuming as well. And another thing as well, I personally think they panicked towards the end, Séamus, with the 2-pointers. Yeah. Like, there were some instances where there was a time to take up 1-pointer. They had time. They didn't realise it, but they had time at stages as well. There was one particular instance, they had a 45, and Conor Carr went up, and you were thinking, like, even from a neutral, if putting a neutral's cap on it for base here, you were thinking from Conor Carr's point of view, put it over the bar. Like, you're still a point down, I thought it was puzzling the way Roscommon kind of adapted to that towards the end of it. And then once the Dermot Murtagh shot came in for the Daniel O'Mahony block, that was at that stage, it was desperation. They had to get a 2-pointer at that stage, and they ran out of time. The clock was gone. It was pausing at that stage from a Roscommon point of view. But look, brilliant win for Cork. And one thing as well, Séamus, Colin O'Mahony, I had to credit as well, getting that late point. That was a crucial point in the game because it made Roscommon panic too. It did make them panic because once Cahill got that point, Cork were 2 points up. Roscommon were like, oh crap, we need a 2-pointer here. And they panicked towards the end. And ultimately, Cork got the job done. And it was just a brilliant game of football, and well done to the players.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they were absolutely well worth the win. On top of that, we have a few comments coming in about the Roscommon Cork game, so I'll run through these. Peter Griffin, he says, change needed in the Rossi setup. Cork were clinical and got the job done. Seems after Defo showed those guys really care. Gavin O'Reilly also comes in and says, agree with Matthew. Cork were really solid, never panicked. We just didn't look like ourselves, poorly. And then on top of that, he said, Colm Neary, good young defender. Don't know why he didn't start. Our midfield was poor. Keith Doyle would have helped. Connor Hand is a great young forward that didn't start either. And then on top of that, Peter Griffin asks, why has Connor Cox never started? I don't know, to be honest.
The thing is, actually, I was in the media box in Portlaoise yesterday, and I actually seen Connor Cox walk across me in the stand. And I was like, this guy actually looks fine. So I don't know what Gavin might know more than us.
He's a sharpshooter. He's a sharpshooter. He's someone you could plant on that 2-point arc and he'd be a real threat.
That's it. And it was just puzzling from a Davy Burke's point of view as well. And even for some other players from underage.
We've one more comment, and I'd like to get your take on this. Peter says, surely Davy Burke be out the gap. Is this it for the Davy Burke era in Roscommon?
I think, unfortunately, it probably is, because we made this comment over the last few years. Have Roscommon really progressed since Anthony Cunningham left?
I thought the first year under Davy they did. First couple of years under Davy, I could see progression, but the last 2 years, I think they've taken significant steps backwards.
The thing is, as well, they have not been knocked out of the championship. Davy Burke's team have been knocked out of the championship by Cork twice now.
Mm-hmm.
Would you see that as worrying, considering Cork have been lower in the Alliance leagues, or is that just?
But I think Cork, you have to put context on it. I think Cork, especially last season, were a tricky team to play against who were on the rise. Like, I think Cork were very much playing in an underdog type mentality. Roscommon were favourites coming into that game. That game suited Cork down to the ground now in hindsight. When you look at it, it was still not taking anything away. Still a fantastic win for Cork that they were fully deserving of. But Roscommon being such strong favourites now, when you look back in hindsight, probably doesn't fit too well, because, you know, Cork were a solid team, and that type of game at the time suited them. They've embraced the new rules, and the 2-pointers that they kicked were absolutely superb. But you are right. I think with the players that they have and the young stars that they have coming through, I think they need to start embracing that a little bit more. Davy, for me, should be capable of doing this job. He should be a good fit. But for some reason, they've taken a step back. I would give him one more year. And if it is another year, like we've seen this year, where you're stagnating and you're not seeing much improvement, then I think it's time to call it on this era. But I really, really do believe he deserves one more year. I think we've seen enough. But Gavin, I'd be really interested in your take. Would you want Burke to be gone? Because you know way better than us two, because as a proud Roscommon man, you know what you'd want for this team. And I feel like that opinion needs to be heard. He's saying Mark McKee didn't get enough credit in the first year of the background team in 2023, but the last 2 years were terrible. Peter Griffin says, Burke will be gone. Surely he has lost the dressing room. I don't know my way to put it. The thing about it is, he does seem to be one of those line in the sand type managers that you're either on this side or you're on his bad side. Now, I don't know, and you can't really discuss, but Gavin, I would be really, really interested in your opinion. Should he stay or should he go? We'll move on then to the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships Group 3, Round 3, and we'll start to pick it up a little bit because we are already past the 50-minute mark. You know what happens if we get to an hour 40, Matthew? Start moving into delusional territory. So we'll move on to this game, which was a banger. Monaghan 2-27, down 126 at the Athletic Grounds. Absolutely incredible game of Gaelic football. Monaghan pushed over the line with a little bit of help from a very controversial goal from Jack McCarron, which, let's just call it as it is. He clearly picked that ball up off the ground and then kicked it into the back of the net. However, let's focus on the good things about this game, because it was an unbelievable game. of Gaelic football. We saw outstanding performances from both teams. Pat Havern with 12 points. Jack McCarron got 1-3. Yes, I know that goal was in there, but 1-3 off the bench. Micheál Bannigan with 1-2. Stephen O'Hanlon with 3 points. Monaghan got 6 points from their half-back line of Ryan O'Toole, Desi Ward, and Conor McCarthy. And just all in all, from start to finish, I thought Oran Murdoch as well was absolutely immense for Down. But all in all, this was a superb game of Gaelic football.
Yeah, and there was a lot of great goal chances, great play, great attacking play from both sides of the fence as well. And like in fairness to Down, like there's like when you look at the number of shots, 38 shots for Monaghan, 34 for Down. Like that's 72 shots in 70 minutes. That's
crazy.
That's unreal, you know. And people talk about wanting more defensive systems in the new rules.
Yeah.
Look, just leave that argument out of it. But I would say both sides impressed me at stages today. Like Monaghan did score 220 for play, which is an absolutely exceptional number, to be fair to them. Obviously, Micheál Bannigan leading the way with 1-2, Jack McCarron off the bench with 1-3, and they performed absolutely brilliant. Like Micheál McCarville getting 2-pointers, and we talked about Mayo not embracing the 2-pointers as much as other inter-county sides. Monaghan today got 6 2-pointers. Like they have, and before this began, actually, I was looking at a graph from I think it was Enda McGearty on X, and he was saying, or one of the graphs from Mayo fan anyway, and the amount of 2-pointers, Monaghan actually had the highest average per game in 2-pointers out of any county. Meath and Cork were joint seconds. But Monaghan have definitely embraced the new rules with these 2-pointers, and that could push them pretty close to an All-Ireland, in my opinion. They look really good at stages. What I will say about Monaghan, a small little criticism, I've noticed this throughout the year in many ways. I know Gary Mohan was missing, and that was a huge loss for them. But in midfield, they were kind of clean by Down in the first half. That would be quite a concern, I'd imagine, for Gabriel Bannigan and his management team. Like that has to be fixed for the All-Ireland quarterfinal in a couple of weeks' time. As for Down, like Pat Havern, I've seen him up close. Well, like, this guy is an absolutely brilliant Gaelic footballer. Even before the 2-pointers, this guy was top scorer nearly every list in terms of Down top scores or championship top scores in general. He's scoring, like, I'd say, 9 points per game. He scored 12 today. Like he's been absolutely brilliant all season, and for Down to have that forward, they're lucky to have him. Obviously, you have to mention Danny McGill as well. I was really impressed with him when we forward, 4 points today and a 2-pointer as well. Daniel Gillis in midfield was absolutely brilliant in terms of his running game, and he used to play half-back before, and he has been brilliant in this Down team over the last few years. He's like a pocket rocket in midfield. He's been absolutely exceptional in that regard as well. Like even Adam Crimmins, like we made that block against Louth a few weeks ago, but he got 2 points today. So good performances all around from Down Monaghan point of view, and both sides will be positive going to the next stages of the championship in general as well. And Down are improving. And again, we talked about Meath, we talked about other counties as well, and we want these counties to be at the top end of Gaelic football again. And Down, a historic football county, are up at the top end again. It's brilliant to see, and hopefully Down do develop even further. I have to mention the Jack McCarron goal, Séamus, and I'm in total agreement. Great performances all over the pitch and things like that. It was all positive, but it's a pick off the ground. You call it a spade. And Monaghan, I think Jack kind of knew it himself by his reaction. Look at the referee. I think he kind of knew himself that oh crap. Look at the referee. Oh no, he's pointing for a goal. Let's go.
Yeah,
that's basically it. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, from a Monaghan point of view, they missed 2 goal chances in the build-up to that as well. Conor McCarthy had a great shot saved by Ronan.
It was like a magnet to the post. They kept hitting the post.
And then you're like, oh, and they put the ball in the net eventually. But I think that was controversy aside. That was a relief for Monaghan that they actually put the ball into the net then. Because it was almost like, will the ball ever go in? It's like ping ball here. What's happening here? But eventually you put it in with a slight bit of luck. But look.
Slight bit of luck, yeah. Sean says here, the umpire is the one at fault for the McCarron goal. Sometimes I just feel the umpires do nothing for the ref other than wave his arms or flag. I do agree. I think like the umpires should be making those calls. When you look at how the referee is doing everything. They're supposed to be seeing everything, yet the umpires are not held to higher standards when it comes to seeing things that happen right in front of them. Now, we've seen so many big calls over the last 2 years that have had real consequences, whether it be Joe Sheridan throwing the ball in the net with both umpires looking at him, whether it would be Austin Gleason's ghost goal in the Munster Championship where he caught the ball clearly not behind the line, clearly in front of the crossbar, and the umpire gave it as a goal. Whether it's Fintan Burke stopping the ball for St. Thomas's against O'Loughlin Gales in the All-Ireland Club final, where he's clearly behind the line and the umpire is looking at it. Or whether it's this incident with Jack McCarron picking the ball off the ground and kicking it into the net. The umpires are not held to high enough standards when it comes to making mistakes like this, where the referees are. And I feel like having referees as umpires would be the key way to do it. Having people there that are actually qualified referees that would be capable of running the whole match, especially for the big games, is the way to go about it in the future. Sean O'Malley says Pat Havern, the most underrated player in the country. I absolutely agree with that. And Gavin answered my question about Davy Burke staying or going. He says, no, Séamus, please, no. You can have him in Dublin. Say what you want about McStay or Cunningham, but they won Connacht and had some positives in a year. This was one of Roscommon's worst years ever, in my opinion. That is a big statement from Gavin. But yeah, I can understand that coming from a passionate Roscommon fan. Brian here says Monaghan Down had a combined total of 3 goals and 53 points. Astonishing, absolutely. And Jer Gregan, Jer, consistent guest here on Clay, says Clare under 20s black card and being held this year. I'm slightly confused, Jer. I don't really understand what you're saying. If you could rephrase the question. And then Brian says, what was the umpire doing? You could see the umpire 3 yards away, bending down and clearly seeing him picking the ball off the ground. I think that's one of the points they were making in the broadcast. But Monaghan Down, what a cracker of a game. And it's good that both teams are still in the championship because Monaghan and Down play incredible football, both of them. So I'm glad that both of them are still in the championship. Moving on then to the other game in Group 3, Louth 2-17, Clare 2-14. It was the first half where Louth dominated, and in total, Sam O'Roy hit 1-6, Kieran Downey hit 1-5. Clare got a lot better in the second half, led by Mark McInerney, who finished with 6 points, Aaron Griffin with 1-1, and Rory McMahon got the goals for the Banner County. But ultimately, their championship comes to an end, and Louth move on to the preliminary quarter-finals. For Louth, it seemed like they were a little bit asleep behind the wheel after the Leinster final victory, but for them, getting this victory and moving on to the preliminary quarterfinals is a very, very important result.
It is, and it was just about getting over the line from a Louth point of view. They definitely would have been expected to get over the line today. But yeah, it was a good result for Louth. In fairness, Sam O'Roy 1-6 and Kieran Downey 1-5, really leading the way, and probably over the line to them two players in particular. But yeah, that was a big thing from a Louth point of view. And fair play to them for getting over the line. Craig Lennon and Ryan Barnes also getting the score sheet, not as much as previous games, but Louth got over the line. That is the main thing for them. In fairness, going into the hat tomorrow morning. As for Clare, I have to mention this, Séamus. 9 All-Ireland Senior Football Championship group stage games, 9 defeats. I'm sorry, no, but like there was a thing during the week. Owen Cormack wrote the Irish Examiner saying that there's information that the seeding in Munster will be decided by league placings next year and not Munster final placings. And I was thinking, brilliant, hallelujah, this nightmare is stopping now, because I don't think it's fun for the Clare players to lose every game in the All-Ireland series, personally. But then Clare journalists and a few other people are saying that complaining about the seedings and saying, oh, it's a problem because Cork didn't reach the Munster final and things like that. The problems are, number one, the Munster final isn't getting enough attendance revenue because Cork aren't there. Cork and Kerry gain a lot of it, like it or not. Number two, you look at Clare's record over the last few years. They've only, in 3 years in championship football, they've only beaten Waterford, Limerick, Tipperary, and had one win over Cork by a point, a lucky win in Ennis in 2023. Like, I'm sorry, that is not enough to get a place in the Munster final for 3 seasons running. That's not enough. Once is enough. Second, you think, okay, there's a quite considerable. Third in a row, no. And especially when they're in Division 3 again. Like, I mean, this Munster seeding system hopefully comes in next year, because I think everybody's sick of it. And you did mention it, Séamus, on my podcast, that Clare, if they were in the Táilteann Cup, they'd win it. And a lot of people from Clare actually went back at you saying that, oh, we deserve to be in the Sam Maguire Cup. On what basis? You're losing every game. Táilteann Cup is where Clare needs to develop now. You know, the fun stop now. You have to go into the Táilteann Cup, develop as a team there. Let that be the end of it.
I get the points that you're saying. I think with my point when I was saying about the Táilteann Cup, I remember, just to put context on that, I remember I was saying that because it was clear that that was going to be Colm Collins' final season. And I remember they beat Cork in that game. And therefore, I knew that they weren't going to beat Kerry in that year's Munster final. And they ended up having a really bad day against Kerry. And then they lost all 3 games in the group stage. And then Colm Collins leaves the job. And he leaves the job off the back of 4 pretty heavy defeats in a row, which in my opinion was not the way that Colm Collins deserved to go. He deserved to go on a sunshine day where they won a trophy in Croke Park and got all the spotlight that comes with that. And I think when you look at that year, Meath won the Táilteann Cup. And that was a Meath team that was very much in transition under Colm O'Rourke and went on to do nothing the next season. And I personally still to this day think that if that Clare team under Colm Collins played against that Meath team under Colm O'Rourke, I think Clare would have won that game. I think Clare would have won the Táilteann Cup of 2023 if they were in it. So that was the point that I was making at that time. But I fully understand since then, and I was made aware of it at the time, I fully understand the point that you want to play at the best level. You want to play at the top level. That's like a team saying that they would, you know, they'd rather qualify for the Europa League because they might win it rather than qualifying for the Champions League. Of course, you want to play in the top competitions. You want to play against the best of the best. But I do fully agree that they want to play at the best of the best. But during this transition phase, there is evidence there that playing in the Táilteann Cup does help to improve your team over time. It worked for Meath. It's worked for Down. We have seen multiple cases of it. And I think Clare might be slipping into that stage now because they've had a lot of big players leave over the last few years, from David Tubridy to Gary Brennan, and like all Gordon Kelly. Like, these players have been unbelievable servants, unbelievable players for Clare, and they've lost a lot. So therefore, I think they're in a little period of transition right now, and playing against the top teams constantly can't be good for that development. They need to kind of work through the gears before getting up to that level. But Ger, anyway, a proud Clare man, has responded. He says, where were these calls for league seeding in Munster during the Colm Collins era when Clare were regularly beating Cork, finishing second highest Munster team in the league?
No, but like, the point is, Clare are in the Munster final over the last couple of years because of one result in 2023. That's a fact. That is not me slagging people off. That is a fact. Clare have beaten in 2024. They beat Waterford to get to the Munster final in Sam Maguire. In 2025, they beat Tipperary to get into the Munster final in Sam Maguire. And while Waterford probably won't be at the level, that's unfortunate to say, with the greatest respect, Tipperary have good underage teams coming through, but they aren't up to the level right now. As seen in the Táilteann Cup, they went on the group stage. Honestly, bias aside, do you honestly think that is sufficient enough accreditation or things like that to get into the All-Ireland series? Honest question. Because it's just...
Years is to Ger.
Well, both, I suppose.
I would have questions about it for sure. I think on paper, if you're beating 2 Division 4 teams and that gets you qualification to the Sam Maguire, but you look at someone like Kildare and Offaly, for example, who were in the Division 3 final, Offaly who actually won Division 3, and therefore they end up not playing in the Sam Maguire Cup because Leinster is so much more of a minefield to get through. You know, you had Meath there, you had Kildare there, you have Louth, you have Dublin, you have Westmeath. Like, these are very difficult teams to beat in order to qualify for the Sam Maguire Cup. That would be one potential thing I'd be looking at there, but it's really, really interesting. David Carroll says Offaly winning a Division 3 final made them more deserving of being in the Sam Maguire. So David is on the same wavelength there. Jer comes back. He says, and beating Waterford or Tipperary being enough to qualify for the Sam Maguire will be okay. If it's Cork that's doing it because it's Clare, the rules need to be changed. I don't agree with that. I think that Matthew would have the same opinion if it was Cork getting in. Am I wrong in saying that, Matthew?
I would, if Cork were a Division 3 team and failed to get out of Division 3 each and every season.
No, but as in, would you be wanting it to be that's the way that you qualify for the Sam Maguire Cup?
I'm saying that league seedings, it's the time now in Munster Championship where the league seeding has to be precedent over previous performances, because you can't have seedings decided off one result with a 1 point margin in 2023. You just can't. The time for that is done now, you know. The point is, Cork have been regular Division 2 competitors for the last few years. Yeah, it's not the level that we wish to be in. We want to be in Division 1, that's obvious. But we have been Division 2, and ultimately that is good enough to be in the Sam Maguire. Clare have been in Division 3 over the last 2 seasons and have failed to get out of it in the last 2 seasons. Like, that's the point I'm trying to make. I feel like Clare have been lucky with the draws, and it has to stop now. And you look at the All-Ireland group stage losses for Clare. They don't lie. 9 defeats in a row. They don't lie, simple as. And it's time for Clare now to go into we'll mention Limerick in a sec. Look at Limerick in the Táilteann Cup. They're excelling each and every week now. They're into the semi-finals. They have a genuine chance of winning it. And you would say, and there's an argument to say that Clare have better players than Limerick, but right now I think Limerick would have a better season than Clare as of now if they get to the Táilteann Cup final, if they get a good draw in the morning. You know, it's just these little things, and I feel like Clare are missing out themselves as well on a bit of confidence, a bit of exposure, and ultimately maybe just a bit of luck there, here and there as well, a bit of silverware on the board. That's what I'm saying about Clare. They need to be in this competition. The Sam Maguire is too big for them. It's obvious. It's too big for them. And they need to go to the Táilteann Cup.
Too big sounds harsh. I think when they had the teams under Colin Collins, they were worthy of being there. I think for their league position and everything like that. I think they're in a period of transition now. Too big, in my opinion, is too harsh. But yeah, because under Colin Collins, they were absolutely worthy of being there. But I do think if a team can get into the Sam Maguire by beating 2 teams that were in Division 4 versus an awfully team that won Division 3 and doesn't manage to get in, maybe it's something that we need to look at. Raymond here says it. He says Tipperary finished 5th in Division 4. Waterford were 8th in Division 4. So that's kind of the point that Matthew's trying to make. Okay, we are going to move on because getting a little bit tense, but on top of that, we have a lot left to get through. We are moving on then to the Group 4's round 3, starting with Galway versus Armagh in Breffni Park, which was a superb game of Gaelic football. Galway 222, Armagh 27 points. Shane Walsh's late converted free is enough for Galway. They get revenge on Armagh somewhat for last year's All-Ireland final defeat. It's a huge win for Galway, confirming their survival and into the preliminary quarter-finals. What did you make of this one?
It's a bit of relief from a Galway point of view that they did manage to get the win in this one, because at stages, even at half-time, and it was about 20 minutes to go, if I was reading correctly, Galway would have been out of the championship. And if I was reading correctly at Scorpio, did they miss 2 penalties, Séamus, or am I?
Yes, they did.
They did miss 2 penalties. So
Tierney's one was saved. Rob Finnerty stepped up for the second one and blazed over the bar.
Yeah. So
it seemed like they were making a mess of it.
Yeah, and this was an Armagh team that were already qualified for the quarterfinal. You have to give Armagh a lot of credit as well, to even, because a lot of teams would have been on the beach in this situation. But in fairness to Armagh, they got a load of different scores, like Ross McQuillan. I'm actually surprised Rafferty McQuillan, Dar McMullen, Andrew Merlin, Reno O'Neill, Conor Sherbert all played in this game. I'm actually shocked. I really am.
It's because there's a tasty little rivalry there between Armagh and Galway. I think if Armagh had the chance to put Galway out, I think they wouldn't have minded doing that.
That's exactly it. But again, you have to give, like, it's a matter in this situation, if your championship fate is on the line, it's a matter of getting over the line. And that's what Galway did. Through the Shane Walsh free at the end. But let's be honest, other than Peter Cook, who had a decent enough performance, Finnerty and Walsh, it's very concerning for Galway in terms of performances. They just, they show great character, and as Sean mentioned there, I suppose. And they are dangerous in terms of the 2 pointers. But you look at the different amounts of scores that they did have. Walsh, Finnerty, and Cook were the only guys that really stayed the claim. The only other guy to score multiple scores was Killian McDade with 2 points. So that is quite concerning for Galway, I think, moving forward. But again, we'll see with the draw tomorrow morning. If they get a good draw, we'll see what happens. If they get down in Park Esther, I would expect Galway to win that game, despite the way Down played against Monaghan today. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see who Galway get. As for Armagh, they were through anyway. There was not much pressure on them. But in fairness to them, I have to give McGeady a lot of credit for actually putting out a full team, because if I was in this situation, I wouldn't have put out a full team. I would have just, just let the Reno Needs, let the Darragh McMullins, who performed well in this championship, let the Ross McQuillans rest at this stage, plough on to the All-Ireland quarterfinals. But to be fair to McGeady, he showed his full. He played out his near enough to a full team. They nearly got the win in the end to knock their good rivals out, but no, they didn't do it in the end. But look, it was a good game of football, and Galway got over the line.
Absolutely. Gaelic guy 24 here with the Armagh flag in the profile picture says Connaughty, Creeley, Grugan and McCambridge hardly or didn't play for Armagh, so definitely not a worry for us. Roll on 2 weeks. And Sean O'Malley says Armagh deserve a lot of credit as well for the effort they put in, given they were through and it wasn't their strongest team. And Mr. Watch Your Toes, great name. He says another great result for the Limerick footballers. They look an exceptionally coached side this year. Yeah, I love that name. Great to have you on the show. A Gaelic guy 24 here says great first half by us. By the way, I think some highlights in this game: John Maher scoring his first ever championship goal. I mean, that is a really, really interesting stat that he hit the net for the first time for Galway in the championship. And looking in the last reviewing the game. So Armagh led 15-6 at the break. Ethan Rafferty was absolutely superb in this game. His 2-pointer to open the scoring. He got another one before the break. Galway roared into the second half, though, 1-3 in a row as John Maher got his first championship goal, as I mentioned. Shane Walsh's 2-pointer in the 51st minute leveled the game up, and Galway kicked on to lead thanks to 2 more from Finnerty and McDade. Armagh scored 5 in a row from then with McQuillan, Keane McConville, Rafferty and Tiernan Kelly made it 22-116 in the 59th minute. 61st minute, a brilliantly taken goal by Rob Finnerty pushed Galway 1 point ahead. Superb 2-pointer free from Rafferty made it level again before Shane Walsh put Galway ahead. McPartland equalised for Armagh, and then Shane Walsh stepped up from the free to give the victory to Galway. A needed win for Pádraig Joyce's men, and they move on to the next round. David Carroll says, I'm going to miss this format. Great matchups, big games every week, guaranteed home game, and more jeopardy than it was given credit for. I'd love a special congress to reverse the change. That was interesting because it was put to Marty Morrissey on RTE Radio 1 on Sunday Sport, which I was listening to today. And Marty was saying similar things, that every game had drama. And that game between Donegal and Mayo today had exceptional drama. And it really, really was heart in the mouth stuff. Will you be sad to see this format go if it does go?
Well, it is going next year. That's confirmed.
And they can't pull it back. I mean, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, maybe. But then McGeady would get annoyed, wouldn't he? Because he did get annoyed when this system was said to come in, and he didn't like not just the championship structure, he just didn't like the change. Which you have to take into account. Inter-county managers as well are trying to manage the team. The players are trying to play the sport as well. All this chopping and changing for the championship isn't good for them either. You have to think about their point of view as well. Like, they're trying to train for the All-Ireland series. They're trying to get the ultimate goal and win the All-Ireland. So you have to kind of have that bit of continuity. So I could see Kieran McGeeney's point from that in the league as well. In terms of this kind of system, it's kind of a system that a lot of people were complaining about, but now you know what the saying, Seamus, you don't miss something until it's gone.
Yeah.
And that's That's basically what it is with this system. Even though the new system next year, if it does come to pass, obviously, looks quite promising. It's the Secrets and Cup format, if you're familiar with that competition at college level. So round one, you have 8 teams competing against each other. Then you have round 2A with the winners, round 2B with the losers. In round 2B, the losers of those games actually go out in the championship.
So it is A, B. No. Melt my brain.
You're a fan of the groups, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't mind the groups. I would be looking potentially at what about the Táilteann Cup structure. 4 groups of 4, 2 go through, quarterfinal, semi-final, final. And whoever tops the group gets a home draw in the quarterfinals. So that would put real incentive on finishing top of the group. But yeah, we'll move on then to the final game from the group stages. Dublin 22 points, Derry 20 points in Páirc Esler. This is a vital win for the Dubs up in Páirc Esler against Derry. It was a really, really entertaining game, this one. Dublin's fast start from Con O'Callaghan made a really, really, really good start to the game. Shane McGuigan had a masterful spell in the first half, launching Derry 8 points to 6 ahead. He had 2 2-pointers and 2 1-pointers. By half time, it was 13 points each, as even as it gets. The difference in the second half came when Dublin hit 5 points in a row. Kieran Kilkenny, Sean Bugler, John Small, and Con O'Callaghan among the scorers, making it 20 points to 15. By that point, they'd done enough damage that they had just pushed themselves just a little bit too far ahead for Derry to catch them. The goal chance that Brendan Rodgers had that went agonisingly wide will haunt them. Ultimately, Derry have performed really well in a lot of their games, but they do finish the year with 0 wins in 2025. Paddy Tally's future as Derry manager, I'd be interested to get your take on this and where are Derry at now? Because there's no doubt they have the players to compete with the best of the best, and they have performed really well at times over this season. But all in all, 0 wins is nothing other than disappointing.
Yeah, it is, to be fair, but at the same time, they have performed well and they have competed well in Division 1, let's not forget as well, and in the group of 8 with Galway and Dublin and obviously Armagh. But ultimately, it is only 1 win outright for Derry since they won the league last year. That's not a good record.
Yeah, imagine really saying that at the time.
Like, that's mad, you know. But look, in fairness, Derry deserve a lot of credit for their performances in this All-Ireland campaign. In terms of the Paddy Tally thing, it's sort of, you kind of have to ask the players this. Are they happy with Paddy Tally in charge? If they're not, I think he probably has to go, doesn't he? Because like the results aren't there. If the morale isn't there either, probably has to go. It's a disappointing season for Derry, but lots of bright sparks, I would say, moving into the Alliance League next year. We'll see how they perform in years to come. As for Dublin, as our good friend Aaron Prendergast from Gaelic Games Fan TV usually says, Dubs are back. Absolutely. Well, was it a superb performance? Well, good spells.
Solid.
Good. Solid, yeah. So we'll be for halfway there. To be fair, Conor had 5 points and him come back into the team. I think this game probably epitomised, and the Galway game in the first game in the group stage, you need Con in the team to make you tick. Like, this guy scores from play for fun. He's capable of really running a rooster under these new rules as well. Cormac Costa got 4 points. Killian McGuinness, I've said this since Secrets and Cup level, I've been really impressed with this guy in midfield, Killian McGuinness, and you need to probably play him a lot more. Stephen Cluxton even getting a 2 point free. Lee Gannon got 2 points. Sean Bugler again excelling with 2 points. So good performance from Dublin overall, and a really good display to get them in the prelim quarterfinal tomorrow, and they'll fancy their chance against anybody they come up against. And obviously, as you mentioned, 20 points to 15 coming down the home stretch. They built enough of an advantage to get over the line this one. But just a question to you, Séamus. A few players, Ethan Dunn, he was very good in the Secrets of Cup earlier on in the year. What's the story with him? Is he going to play?
I think he's just too young, to be honest. He was on the under-20s and he's just a youngster. O'Coffig Byrne and Killian McGuinness are just 3 or 4 years older than him, and they have a little bit more experience, and therefore they're kind of getting first crack. But Ethan Dunn will no doubt be part of the Dublin midfield over the next 5 or 6 years should he stick it out. He's another superb prospect. And in the Sigerson final, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. You can make a case for Greg McEnany there. You can make a case for Adam Waddick from Thomas Davis. There's a lot of players that we could include around that midfield. But I'm very, very happy with that performance. And Brian O'Riordan, I know you are too, because that was a great away victory. Sean says, Con best forward in the country, in my opinion. And then Gavin says, but I think Dublin, it's a formula. Lose to Meath, beat Galway, lose to Armagh, beat Derry. It seems like they will lose next week. Let's hope not. Brian says Stephen Cluxon put on a masterclass. Raymond says, one of the best consequences of real changes is teams can move the ball very quickly up the field with the mark, the solo and go, etc. That has the effect of potentially wiping out significant leads very quickly. And that also means that the game isn't over, because what would happen, especially in provincial championships at Kerry and Dublin, for example, in Leinster and Munster, was once they got 8 points up, for example, you just knew it was done. You knew there's no way they're going to let a team back in because they're going to manage the game out. But now it's much, much harder to do. We are going to move then to the Táilteann Cup. And we had some absolutely unbelievable results in the Táilteann Cup. The highlight was this. Dean Healy's buzzer beater for Wicklow knocks Westmeath out of the Táilteann Cup. Wicklow 218, Westmeath 217 in Auckland. Matthew, your thoughts on this?
What a season for Wicklow. What a season for Oisin McConville. Again, as I mentioned at the start of the show, topping a group containing Laois and Offaly wasn't, surprising enough. That was a really good win for Westmeath. And I got a few texts there from our good friend Jason Keelan saying, just on podcast again, don't mention Fortress Auckland again, please. Because, that would have been, terror. If he'll get 9 terrors over that now. Like that's... but to be fair, you have to give Wicklow a lot of credit. Like Dean Healy obviously getting the buzzer beater, that would be the headline. But Oisin McGrainer getting 2-2 in this game as well. He's been probably a player that has a lot of potential for Wicklow. A lot of players had a lot of potential. Kevin Quinn, Owen Darcy, he's been one of the players as well. And to get 2-2 on a crucial day for them, brilliant performance by them. As for Westmeath, they'll be disappointed with their season ultimately. Brilliant performances throughout the whole season, but just not enough to clinch a lot of silverware. And we wouldn't have seen these 4 Táilteann Cup semi-finalists at the start of the year. Only Kildare, out of the real favourites, are left standing. And you wouldn't have thought that at the start of the season. It's brilliant for the likes of Wicklow though, in making the semi-finals. Congratulations to everybody involved. And if they get a good draw tomorrow, who's to say they can't make it to the final? Like they could get, like Fermanagh, Wicklow or Limerick are in that draw as well. So we'll see what happens.
Certainly will. David Carroll here says Wicklow's biggest summer since the Mick days. Obviously, rest in peace to the great Mick O'Dwyer. But I mean, this would remind you of the days when, they had that famous win over Down with Tony Hannon getting the late winner and everything like that. Wicklow football is in a bit of a golden summer. And this result, absolutely unbelievable. Gavin says, I think this result saved McConville's bacon. It's a really, really big result for Wicklow. Congratulations to them, taking out one of the absolute front runners, in my opinion, for the Táilteann Cup. I thought Westmeath would be one of the front runners to win the whole thing. So what does that make Wicklow? You have to put them in with who could win it, and especially because they're in the Final Four. Jer says here, I'm not sure even Kildare will be able to bottle this Táilteann Cup. Who knows? There's a lot of teams. Every team in this now is capable of winning it, I've no doubt. Limerick 4-21, Wexford 2-19 at the Gaelic grounds. A goal-hungry Limerick beat Wexford at the Gaelic grounds 4-21 to 2-19. Your thoughts on this?
Limerick are improving as the year has gone on, and they have proved me right over time. They have a lot of good players in this team, and they were lucky the night they played Cork. They had a man sent off earlier on in the game, and the game was probably over after that. But since then, they have really, really improved. Like Danny Neville getting 2-2 in this one, Killian Fahey getting 2 goals, James Naughton 9 points, Emmett Richter 3 points. Limerick have some brilliant players in this team, and Jimmy Lee has knitted them all together. Like Limerick were the situation last year where they were losing nearly 20 games in a row. They were on a really, really poor spell.
They were falling like a stone.
Yeah, and you look at them now, like Jimmy Lee, he got a bit of time under his belt, and he built a solid unit of a team right now. They won the Division 4 ground, and they beat Wexford, a very good Wexford team as well. Sean Nolan who won 7-8, one of the top scorers in this competition. So this was a tough Wexford team, and scored 4 goals against them. brilliant showing by them, and even the likes of Danny Neville, Cillian Fahey, Ian Corbett, James Naughton, Emmett Richter, usually with a small kind of resources like Limerick football do have at this present moment of time. A lot of these talented footballers will go off and leave for America or further ventures. But the likes of Danny Neville have come back into the team. Peter Nash has stuck around. James Naughton has stuck around. Ian Corbett has stuck around. Limerick are building a very good team right now. And a lot of attention obviously will go to their hurlers. Rightly so at this present moment in time. They're one of the best teams in recent history. But their footballers are going pretty well at this present moment in time. That's all credit down to Jimmy Lee, following on from his brother's footsteps in Billy.
Absolutely. And Mr. Watchatoes makes a great point. He says Limerick are without Cian Sheehan and Brian Donovan too, arguably two of their best players. Absolutely. Great point there. We'll move then to the Táilteann Cup quarter-final between Kildare and Offaly. Kildare gets sweet revenge on Offaly for the Division 3 final at St. Conleth's Park in Newbridge. But you do have to talk about Killian Burke's late effort for Offaly, which drifted wide. It was going for the 2-pointer, not only to equalise, but to snatch the win for Kildare. So for Offaly, sorry. But for Kildare, it's a great, great day. Alex Byrne, 7 points. Derek Irwin and Ryan Sinky both with 3 points. James McGrath with a brilliant individual goal. And Daniel Flynn was back in the starting lineup for the Lilywhites. So all in all, if you're Brian Flanagan, you're chuffed to bits with that into the Táilteann semi-finals, and now they have a great chance to win the whole thing.
And I have a feeling, looking at this pairing in the quarterfinal, I think that potentially was the final, in a way. Sorry, Liam. Sorry. Look, we have to talk, but look, yeah, to be fair, Offaly have had a good year. They had a good year, and they should be very proud of their efforts, in fairness. I think the main result that derailed Offaly was the game against Laois a few weeks ago. If you won that game, you probably would be in a Táilteann Cup final or a semi-final, depending on the way the draw went. But it is Kildare's day. It's a brilliant victory for them. Killy Burke's attempt at the end, I feel like hindsight's a beautiful thing, Séamus, but could he have took it in? Could he have taken it even further just to be safe? Than sorry, but look, that's you're thinking right after the
incident. Never for trying. Never.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he had the distance as well. You'd imagine he had it in the locker to do it, but under those pressure circumstances, it's unfortunate that it drifted out. And that's it. And that's the cutthroat nature of when the year gets to this stage. But yeah, unfortunately, it drifted out. But for Kildare, I'd say all in all, over the course of the game, probably just about shaded it because they were ahead for the majority of the second half. Offaly had been constantly chasing them down. Paddy Dunnigan's 2-pointer free in the 67th minute finally made it a 1-point game again. Alex Byrne and Shane Tierney traded scores, and that's when the chance came to Burke to snatch the win for Offaly. It would have been a smash and grab, I think, but yeah, it's unfortunate to see you like a young lad head in the hands. Everything like that, when the shot goes wide, it's unfortunate, but he'll bounce back, and this Offaly team will bounce back because they are not going anywhere. They're only going to get better and better and better, especially with the managerial duo that they have there and the young talent they have coming through. The final Táilteann Cup quarter final then, Fermanagh 21 points, Sligo 116 at Brewster Park. And this game had big implications because Tony McEntee stepped down as Sligo manager following the end of this game. So the McEntee era with Sligo has come to an end. But for Fermanagh, they had 10 scorers across the board. Garvin Jones, 5 points. Ronald McCaffrey, 3. Josh Lago-Ellis, Conor Love, Ryan Lyons, Darren McGurn, Fionn O'Brien all got 2 points. Very impressive day out for Fermanagh. Not only that, but they turned around what was a bad start. Niall Murphy got a sloppy goal for Sligo, and that put Sligo into the driving seat from the start. Fermanagh arrested that tide, turned the game around, and get into a Táilteann Cup semi-final.
It's about time. I said, because if Fermanagh have been this sort of team, they have the potential. It's all about just taking this competition seriously, and they've took it seriously. You have to give them a lot of credit. I didn't think they would after the game against Carlow, the way they lost that game, but in fairness to them, that was a good display from them to come back into this game after a tough start to it with Niall Murphy's goal, obviously, and to come back and get the win. Garvin Jones and Conor Love have been in brilliant form throughout the Táilteann Cup and showed in this game too. It's a good win for Fermanagh, and when you look at the teams left in it, you would arguably say Fermanagh only Kildare are better than them. if that's fair to say. But we'll have to see. Like, we've seen Wicklow beat Westmeath. Anything can happen. So we'll see in the next few weeks what happens. But I'm just glad Fermanagh are actually taking this competition seriously because, as I said, it's about time.
Yeah, no, they have absolutely been kind of asleep at the wheel now over the last few seasons in the Táilteann Cup. I remember their performance against Laois 2 years ago was really, really lackluster. But they turned up for this one, and they turned up on business. And I think Fermanagh or Kildare, I think, would be the two that I'd put as front runners that I think will win the Táilteann Cup when it's all said and done. But I definitely do not write off Wicklow or Limerick either. I just do make them underdogs if they are drawn on respective opposite sides of the draw, that is. Now, moving on to the All-Ireland Senior LGFA Championships Round 2. We'll start off with Group 1, and Galway just keep on winning. They go away to Donegal in Lifford, and they beat them by 111 to 1-2. They had a wide spread of scorers as well. Andrea Trill with 2 points, Olivia Dively with 3 points, and Alva Davern hitting 1-1. For Donegal, it's a disappointing day in front of the posts, but for Galway, they just keep on winning.
Yeah, and that's their 13th win in a row in this season's
Unbelievable
league. It's brilliant, and they are serious All-Ireland contenders. And the best thing about this Galway performance, you mentioned the scores there. Roisin Leonard didn't play in this game, and obviously she's been their scorer chief over the last few weeks or so. And Galway have shown that they're more to life than Roisin Leonard. There are some decent players there. Olivia Dively is a superb talent. Alva Davern as well, who won 1 in this game, and they are serious all-Ireland contenders, Galway. There's no doubt about it. And when you look at the talented players that they have in the team, there's no doubt about that. But for Donegal, look, it's a game against Tipperary in a few weeks' time now. I think I have to look at the table again, but I think Donegal are behind them because of scoring difference. They lost by 9 in this one, and if memory serves me correctly, Galway beat Tip by, I think it was 9 in the last one as well, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually don't know. I think it would actually suit Tip to draw because Tip scored more. So Donegal have to win the next day against Tip. So a lot of pressure on them in the next game, and considering this game is in Lifford, this game, this Tip and Galway game, this will be in Fethard, I think, wouldn't it be? So Tip have a huge.
Tip will have home advantage.
Yeah, so that's going to be big, and especially with the form Ashley Maloney's on at this present moment in time, Tip might fancy their chance, considering Donegal really fell flat in their face in the Ulster final against Armagh. They didn't put up much of a challenge in Division 2, and now that heavy defeat to Galway. I know we said we fancy Tip to beat Meath last year. I remember this distinctly, Séamus, and that prediction, came back to bite us in the end. Meath got over the line. But genuinely, Donegal are just not in good form this season. And Tip are decent enough form. I think Tip could shock them.
I think Tip could win this game. I think Tip will win this game. I think when you look at the Ulster final, Donegal scored 4 points in that game. And then in this game, they only scored 2 points. So it doesn't seem to be enough of a threat in the Donegal forward line. They are a team that are rebuilding. They're missing some of their best players that they've had over the last 5-6 years, from Niamh McLaughlin to Yvonne Bonner. Like, they're not there anymore. They're in a transition phase, and this is the result of it. You will have bad days at the office, but this was a very good day at the office for Kerry, beating Cork in Porky Queeve 5-7 to 2-9. Sheaf O'Shea with 2-4, Danielle O'Leary with 1-2, Rachel Dwyer and Niamh Crowher with a goal apiece. Big shout as well to Cork for Katie Quirk with 1-2, Anya O'Sullivan with a goal, and Laura O'Mahony with 2 points respectively from the Rebels side of things. But for Kerry, it's a very, very impressive win on the road against one of their biggest rivals.
Their second win over Cork this season in the championship. So they'll be happy with that, Kerry. Good performance from Mark Burke's side in this one, and they were very, very convincing. Not like the Mayo game where they were very unconvincing in the last game. Daniel O'Leary, absolutely superb. She got player of the match. This one for TG Karen, hit 2-4. Niamh Crowher, obviously, Rachel Dwyer, excellent performances from the Kerry point of view as well. And even without Louise in the team, Louise Verhertig, obviously, they are excelling, and they're into the All-Ireland quarter-final now, probably safely so. But you look at that Mayo Cork game next week in Castlebar. That's a must-win game now for Cork because of the scoring difference. Mayo could afford a draw, but having looked at Mayo's scores and top scores list, they're only very, very reliant on Sinead Walsh. So you would expect Cork to win it, but it's still a tricky game to go up to Castlebar and go win for Joe Carroll's side. But I am confident Cork can get over the line in that game. We'll see what happens. They do have more scoring threats than Mayo do. As you mentioned, Laura Manny's been in brilliant form. Katie Cork's been exceptional as well. Audie Terry's come back in this year and done absolutely brilliantly, in fairness. So yeah, look, Cork have done decent enough, but that was a difficult defeat to take against Kerry. But then again, scoring 2-9 is actually decent enough. And the goals that Audie Terry and Katie Cork got were actually superb finishers. So I'd be confident enough going into the Mayo game next week. But not the confident side is Mayo only need a draw, and they might be a bit defensive. We'll see next week what happens.
We certainly will. We'll move then to Group 3's round 2, and this one was just a case of pure grit and determination because the conditions in this game were not good at all. And Meath went away to Hawkfield and beat Kildare by 7 points to 4 in a game that was summed up by just grit and determination because the conditions did neither team favours here. Emma Duggan scored 5 of Meath's 7 points, while player of the match Marion Farrelly chipped in with the other 2. For Meath, this is just a game, as I was saying there, the conditions were terrible. So to just get out of this game with the win, knowing how important it is, and it piles all of the pressure onto Kildare's game against Armagh now, and Meath have more or less saved themselves.
Yeah, and Meath are in the All-Ireland quarter-final now, confirmed, because Kildare and Armagh are playing each other in the next week. So it is a good achievement, and you have Vicky Wall back in the team, you have Emma Duggan back in the team, Marion Farrelly performed well, Kerry Cole is another player that has the potential to kick on from a Meath point of view as well. And even Sean Ennis coming back and getting a goal last week is a positive from a Meath point of view. So I think from Meath's standpoint, it is a good thing that they are in the All-Ireland quarter-final. They're back where they need to be now, and that was a good win to get into Hawkfield. The tough place to go against the good enough Kildare side. Like Kildare weren't going to go down easy. Like Kildare stayed up in Division 1 for a reason. They are a very good side. But that game against Armagh for Kildare now is a must-win game next week. It's going to be a difficult task, obviously. We'll see what happens in that game, but yeah, it should be a difficult game for Kildare. But the bottom line, Meath are in the All-Ireland quarter-final. They won't care about the score. They won't care about the shooting efficiencies. They got over the line.
Certainly, but they will care about this. Vicky Wall done dirty by the ref, never at fault for her sending off, says David Carroll. Well, I'm seeing here that Vicky Wall and Meath appeals to the referee, so I'm not sure if they are going to appeal it. But hopefully Vicky is cleared to play because she's one of the best players in the country and she makes a big difference to Meath when she is there. Now, we went from a really competitive game to one that was not competitive at all. It was a game that was supposed to be played yesterday. It was postponed because of poor weather conditions, but it was played today. Dublin 8-18, Leitrim 7 points in Clonborough. Hannah Tyrrell scored 3-7. Kate Sullivan scored 3-1. Eve Heatherton scored 1-4. Carla Rowe scored 1-3. Just an absolute massacre in this game. A bad day at the office for Leitrim. Dublin oozing class in this one.
Yeah, it was absolute demolition in terms of a game in this one. Hannah Tyrrell and Kate Sullivan both got hat-tricks in this one. So it was a really, really comprehensive win. Even Carla Rowe managed to get on the goal scored sheet as well. It's good for her confidence. Even Niamh Heatherton getting 1-4. They're in the All-Ireland quarter-finals now. That is going to be a kick in the teeth for Leitrim, who have to go into a game against Waterford next week and have to win that game. It's going to be tough for them, especially with the form of Waterford are on at this present moment in time.
This is a Waterford team that drew a Dublin who just put 8-18 past Leitrim. It doesn't look good. And
that's a Waterford team that should have beat Dublin as well.
Yeah.
So you know, it isn't good. It really isn't. And yeah, look, it's a difficult defeat to take for Leitrim. It's a minor miracle themselves that they are at the senior level, considering they're a Division 4 team. They still are a Division 4 team, which is mental. But look, they showed some bright sparks at the Connacht Championship. I'm still hopeful that they can put in a bit of a display against Waterford next week. But unfortunately, I'm just expecting nothing else but a Waterford win next week. At Dublin or in the quarterfinals, where they need to be. And with new management this season, that's the least of what they expected.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this was a case of just a Division 4 team who's been playing against Division 4 opposition and failed to get out of Division 4, by the way. coming up against one of the best teams in the country. Interestingly enough, Ailish O'Dowd and Laura O'Dowd played against each other on opposite sides. Ailish is originally from Leitrim. She's transferred to Dublin, while her sister Laura O'Dowd still plays for Leitrim. Laura lined out at number 15 for Leitrim in this game, while Ailish O'Dowd lined out at number 8 for Dublin in this game. Now, personally, I don't like that is possible in the GAA, but it is an interesting stat, and I wonder when the last time it is that two brothers or sisters have ever played against each other for different county teams. The All-Ireland Intermediate LGFA Championship had its round 3 this weekend as well. And we saw in Group 1, Roscommon and Fermanagh. It finished Fermanagh 4-10, Roscommon 3-9. In Group 2, Tyrone beat Westmeath 6-11 to 7 points. In Group 3, Wicklow 1-11, Monaghan 1-10. And in Group 4, Clare went away to Wexford and won by a goal and 9 to Wexford's 10 points. While in the All-Ireland Junior LGFA Championship, Group A had its round 3 and Group B had its round 2. In Group A's round 3, Louth beat Kilkenny 4-20 to a goal and a point, while Limerick beat Derry 8-12 to 1-8. So two absolute annihilations in that group. While in Group B's round 2, Longford beat Carlow 2-6 to 1-5, while we had another annihilation as Antrim torched London 3-18 to no score. Some seriously one-sided games there. Not great from a competition standpoint. But I mean, we're only getting started when it comes to non-competitions here, because there's not much to talk about with these games, unfortunately. Laois 18 points, Tipperary 3-32 in O'Moore Park. I mean, the prelim quarterfinals with the John McDonagh teams coming through used to have the fanfare around it, in no small part due to Laois beating Dublin in 2019. But year on year, the gap seems to have just widened and widened and widened. Tipperary 3-32, Laois 18 points. What do you make of this?
Well, Séamus, I was obviously covering the Cork and Roscommon game for the Southern Star, and I actually didn't catch the Tippett Laois game because obviously it was pouring rain, and I wanted to kind of stay in the comfort of my own car before getting out in it. And I went into the ground and I met the media people there, and I was saying, what was the game like before it? And we're saying, waste of time. Yeah. And genuinely, that was it. It was just, like, with the greatest respect to Laois, and we'll talk about Kildare and Dublin a bit, with the greatest respect to Joe McDonagh sides, they are nowhere near, especially the level of Tip, a side that have beaten Waterford and beaten Clare this season, and Laois got hammered themselves by Waterford this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it was a waste of time for the word go. I don't know why these games were, like, in particular, Tip against Laois, because Tip are a team that tested Limerick all the way, obviously got a draw against them, have been very impressive this season at under the age level and at senior level. Have done really well under Liam Cahill. You have to give credit to them. Coming up against a Laois team that just lost his Joe McDonagh final last weekend by 10 points. What do you expect was going to happen? Like, yeah. I'm sorry, it was just a non-event. It's not even worth mentioning scores, and it's not a benefit to either side as well, because Laois are going in with degraded confidence. Tip aren't learning anything out of this game. It's almost like it's just a game to tick the calendar box. And I mean, it's sort of a system that is dependent on one result that happened in 2019, the Laois Dublin game. Yeah. And that's basically what it is. Again, not much point to talk about this game. Good win for Tipperary, but then again, what are they going to? They haven't learned anything before the Galway game next week.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think when you look at it through this arc, I would look at it more so and think we could push the John McDonagh, the Christy Ring, the Nicky Rackard, the Laurie Mark Cup finals. We could push them back to the weekend of the All-Ireland Hurling final itself. Now, I'm open to being corrected on this, but, you know, when we're talking about making the All-Ireland Hurling final like a festival weekend, could you imagine if on the Saturday we played all of them finals and then had up for the match on after? And imagine if they gave the tickets away for free. Imagine if the All-Ireland Hurling final fans could go in for free to the John McDonagh final, the Christy Ring final on the Saturday, and then go watch up for the match that night when they're staying in Dublin, and then go to the All-Ireland Hurling final the next day, and the All-Ireland minor final was before, and then we had a music performance, and then we had the All-Ireland final. I mean, what a weekend that would be. I mean, that would be absolutely off the scale. But I think that would be an interesting way to look at it. The reality is Tip are one of the best teams in Ireland. Like, they are one of the best teams in Ireland. They got out of the Munster Championship, which is the toughest province to get out of, no doubt about it. And Dublin got out of a very competitive Leinster Championship. So you're not going up against two teams that failed to get out of their provinces. You're going up against two teams that successfully got out of the provinces, which makes them, at least in theory, in much better form. So that's the difficult way to look at it. And the same thing happened in what I thought would be a tricky game for Dublin. I really, really didn't like how this game was looking. Kildare were on such good form. But in this game, Rian McBride with 3, Fergal Whiteley with 1-1, Diarmuid Dooling with 1-2, Ronan Hayes at 1-2, Keane O'Sullivan with 2 points, Sean Curry with 8, Brian Hayes with 3, Chris Crummy with 2 points from centre-back. Dublin made what looked like it might be a sticky game look very straightforward.
They did, and at the same thing, from a Kildare point of view, to give them a lot of slack, a lot of them players would have been on the beer until Wednesday. Let's be honest here, and rightly so. After winning the Joe McDonagh Cup for the first time in their history, they have every right to celebrate. But if you're going to play this game, another thing as well, Séamus, if you're going to keep this thing alive, at least give the Joe McDonagh teams a 2-week break. At least that. I mean, give it Kildare a week break after celebrating hard. Obviously, the saying goes, work hard, play hard. Kildare, we're obviously gonna play hard this weekend. They were gonna do it, and you could see, like, even I think it was who was it? One of their players, Dolan, during the week, at a press event, and it looked like he was on the beer for 2 days straight. It was like, okay, but he has every right to do so. Every right to do so. It was a brilliant achievement for Kildare. But to ask them to go and play a top-level team like Dublin a week later, not even a week, 6 days later, that's even worse. I mean, it's, it wasn't right. In hindsight, we were hoping for a good game of hurling, but in the end, reality kind of hit us on the backside, didn't it? It really did. It wasn't a good look, really, for anybody involved. And again, from your point of view, from Dublin's point of view, they aren't going to learn anything for the Limerick game next week, which is probably the worst sort of preparation to go into a game against one of the greatest teams of all time in recent seasons.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have the chair coming out on smoke about this point. He says, I will say that one Joe McDonagh Cup victory in 2019 is more victories than the 0 times a Leinster third place team have won a quarter final. And the games involving the third place Leinster teams have been hammerings. And he also says in 2023, the John McDonagh was a standalone fixture and Carlow were given a 2-week break and were competitive against Dublin for the preliminary. I do agree they should have been given more time to prepare for this game. If you're going to do it right. Give them the best opportunity to win. But I do feel as well, look, if you look at it this way, whoever finishes third in a Leinster Championship has come up in the last 2 years against Clare, usually, who've been coming out of the Munster final. And that's always been a really, really tough game for them to play. It's always been a difficult one. You're playing against a Clare team that, are still technically the All-Ireland champions, even though it will be somebody new by the end of the year. So I wouldn't be too harsh either way. I just think when you look at the gap of those defeats, I think it is time to have a conversation at least and look at, when will we realistically see one of these games end in a victory for a John McDonagh Cup finalist again? We're not sure. And this weekend wasn't a showcasing that it could happen anytime soon. It was a very one-sided game. That being said, it was both very one-sided games. But that being said, Meath got hammered by Dublin in the football last year. 1 year later, they beat Dublin. And they also got hammered by Kerry this time last year. And this year they beat them. So there's plenty of examples of how things can turn around quickly in a year. But I would still say, if it continues to happen, we do need to have a conversation about it.
No, but one thing I will say about this, Séamus, compare football to hurling. Like, in football, you have Meath that, I know they got hammerings, but they are well resourced. You have to give it that as well. Realistically, Kildare, Laois, Carlow, Westmeath, these sides are not going to be well resourced until the hurling review committee, which is obviously taking shape with Willie Maher in charge there, with the head of hurling up there. He is taking seriously that the lower tier hurling teams need a lot of attention, and they need a lot of confidence, and they need a lot of structure. Simple as that. Because right now they're not up to the level for the Liam McCarthy teams. So you look at, for example, like even the small things about restructuring the Leinster Championship, even having it to 10 teams, having it 5 teams per group, rather than next season. And I hate to say that because Kildare have had an absolutely incredible season, and I hope they do well next season. But you could just see a scenario next season where they finish bottom and go back down again.
Yeah.
And ultimately,
I think it's between themselves, Offaly, Dublin, and Wexford.
I still think Offaly will gain a lot of experience from this season, and with the underage talent coming through, I think Offaly will have too much for Kildare. That's just my honest opinion.
Okay. No, that is an interesting shout. I probably would lean towards that being the most likely thing to happen, but again, anything can happen. Anyway, we'll move quickly because it's heading towards 2 hours, and God knows how delusional we'll get if it ticks over 2 hours. The All-Ireland Minor Hurling semi-finals saw Waterford beat Kilkenny by 221 to 218, with Cormac Spain shining for Waterford with 2-6, and in the other one, Clare beat Cork by 27 points to 122. Paul Rogers, with 13 points from full forward, led the way for the banner. Your thoughts on these two semi-finals and then the potential final matchup, well, not potential, the final matchup between Waterford and Clare?
Firstly, on Waterford, Waterford underage hurling is really getting a steady growth, and you have to give them a lot of credit for that. Cormac Spain, obviously, as you mentioned there, Shane Power, Jamie Shanahan, Garrett O'Shea all scored multiple scores on this one. Quick mention as well to Jake Mullen, who's actually Adrian Mullen's brother, who got 6 points in this one for Kilkenny. Good display from him. Keane Byrne getting 1 goal and a point. Adam Maher getting a goal as well. Ollie O'Donovan, who I'm a large fan of for Kilkenny, getting 2 points on the board. But Waterford, it is their day, and they seem to be growing well in hurling at this present moment in time. Speaking of intercounty brothers, Paul Rogers, as you mentioned there, is actually Mark Rogers' brother. 13 points. It runs in the family. You have to double check these things, Séamus, because it doesn't not necessarily equate to being brothers. Like, prime example is Stephen and Darren Cohen for Mayo, who actually I found out are actually cousins, not brothers.
Yeah.
On the same team.
And they do look alike. They do.
That's the thing, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, and they're both from the same club. So you're thinking, okay, they must be brothers then, but you obviously can't assume. Never assume. That's the lesson. That's the lesson for the day. But from Rogers' point of view, it was mentioned that Paul is Mark's brother and Jake is obviously Adrian's brother in the Kilkenny side. But other than them players, obviously for Clare, Ben Tawsey, Ian O'Brien had very good performances with 3 points each. Rory Ralph with 2 points. Love that name, by the way, Rory Ralph. Never heard of it. Yeah, it's a nice name. Lee Murphy with 2 points as well. And speaking of brilliant families, from a Cork point of view, just in my hat on, Cormac Dean, who scored 1-2 from play today, is actually the great Joe Dean's son from Killa. Killa, obviously the song. Killa. So obviously, it runs in the family. So Cormac has a big potential, obviously, in a Killa jersey and a Cork jersey in particular. Craig O'Sullivan did well. Owen O'Shea really performed well, 5 points for play. So obviously Cork won the Munster Championship. So there still is some good players coming through this minor team. You would be confident enough from that. But Clare Waterford in the final, an interesting pairing there. I'd fancy Waterford to edges just because Waterford were the finalists to Cork in that Munster final. We're very unlucky to lose that. So I'm going to go Waterford to win the All-Ireland minor title.
I'm going to just agree with you. I'll shade it to Waterford. I was very impressed with them in that minor final defeat to Cork. Yeah, I know that's not a great metric, but just their performances in the form of Cormac Spain is absolutely sensational. Wrapping up then on the Camogie Championship, the Senior Championship took a break this week, but in the All-Ireland Intermediate Camogie Championship, Group 1's Round 2 saw Offaly beat Meath 315 to 11 points, and Antrim beat Westmeath 5-9 to 4-4, while in Group 2 of the Intermediate Championship, Kerry beat down 13 points to 11, and Carlow beat Kildare 216 to 13 points. And then there were 2 games in the Prem Junior Camogie Championship. Roscommon beat Wicklow 1-9 to 9 points, and Armagh beat Tyrone 3-19 to a goal and 6. So big congratulations to all of the teams that came out on the right side of those victories. Brian says to you, Matthew, he says, if I was Matthew, I would be writing a personal letter to Joe Brolly, inventing my disgust at his comments. And Jared then talking about the Clare minors. The Clare have really turned around their underage record against Cork since that 40-point hammering in 2021. So that's going to be a really interesting final. And we are nearly at 2 hours. So I'm going to wrap this podcast up. Matthew, thanks a million for jumping on. Another really, really good episode. Really, really enjoyed that. And it was a doozy of an episode. And big thanks as well to Brian O'Riordan, Dermot Spallin, Sean O'Malley, Liam White, Raymond Gilbourne, Peter Griffin, Paddy Hart, Yonder Orphan, Gavin O'Reilly, Jer Regan, Mr. Watch Your Toes, David Carroll, and Christopher Conlon. Throwing in comments throughout the episode. I really, really enjoyed all of them, and you helped to make the episode what it was. We'll be back next weekend, next Sunday at 8 p.m, as we always are. And until then, Tor Ara, agus buin tanna bos an seachtaine.